Chapter 1343. With a complicated expression, Yu Yuan stared at the frigid snow bear's back from the inside of the dragon beheading platform. He gradually realized that this mysterious snow bear had only comprehended part of the sword sect's profound sword incantations. With sword intent flowing through its body, it could sense the profound meaning of the sword incantations. It could also use its sword intent to trigger the corresponding sword light in the river of sword light. However, this snow bear couldn't wield its sword or refine sword light to kill its enemies. That was because its tendons and blood didn't contain any spiritual power. In fact, sword sect cultivators didn't pay much attention to the tempering of their bodies or the accumulation of their flesh auras. Therefore, most sword sect grand cultivators had very little blood power in their flesh auras. What they were strong at was the golden hall small heaven and earth in their lower dantian, the refinement of their spiritual power, and the cleansing of their souls. Since he had the scabbard in his hand, Yu Yuan had tried to comprehend the profound sword incantations left behind by other sword immortals. He knew that the profound sword incantations and moves were almost all a combination of spiritual power and soul power. Therefore, flesh aura was insignificant. Without the corresponding spiritual power and soul power flowing through his meridians and flesh, many wondrous sword incantations couldn't be performed or condensed into sword light. The frigid snow bear was an outsider beast. Like the powerful demons in Howren, its power came from its flesh aura and beast soul. Even though it had comprehended many profound sword incantations and could even unleash sword intent, it couldn't produce sword light and merge its sword intent into it. It could only consume the sword incantations it had comprehended in the river of sword light. Whoosh! As it let out a low roar, another world of absolute frost suddenly appeared in the dragon beheading platform's vision. There were no Asuras or beasts in that world of absolute frost. The realm barrier that surrounded this world seemed to have just been pulled down and taken away, causing the power of the river of stars in the domain of Firefly to pour down and cause the death of many pine trees and forests. In the underground caverns of that world, in the deep sea, and in the darkness of the forest, sword light constantly flashed. The rest of the young god sword cultivators were hiding in an icy world that was taken away by Alonso. Zhou Yu also saw the commotion over there. He snorted and said, Alonso should have known long ago that there are young god sword cultivators secretly setting up a sword formation in another world of absolute cold. Otherwise, he wouldn't have torn down the realm barrier of that star to restrain Shi Quan. As he spoke, he and Yu Yuan both noticed a huge silver battleship emitting a cold luster. It immediately left the ground and flew towards that world. The rumbling of the warship, the silver-white flames that it emitted, caused everyone's mind to tremble. Soon, many tall Azura warriors, carrying long spears and snow-white light blades, rode huge war beasts and began to surround and kill the hidden young god of the sword sect in the world that had lost the boundary wall. The young gods of the sword sect, who had been secretly sent by Yumu, the sword of heavenly water, to set up a formation in secret as a backup, immediately became the targets of the Azuras. Nearly 100 Azura warriors, all of whom had bloodlines at the 8th and 7th level, were in an extremely bad situation with the help of the warship in the sky. Yu Yuan saw that a female sword immortal who practiced the Sword of Shattering had her young spirit body shattered by an Azura wrapped in silver holy light with a giant blade. He also saw a sword cultivator who also practiced the sword art of earth charging into the sky. Then, he was drowned by the cannon fire of the Azura warship. His young god body exploded into jade powder in the air like a huge piece of jade. Almost at the same time, Alonso, the commander of the Azura race, used a bloodline secret technique. The silver veil formed by the realm barrier of this world suddenly condensed into a silver spear. Alonso held the spear, and his slender but straight figure appeared above Shi Quan. Shi Quan, who had summoned her Dharma idol and was carrying a sword tomb on her back, looked up at the silver spear stabbing at her. Just as she was about to swing her sword to meet it, she found that the silver spear had suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it had already appeared in Shi Quan's soul consciousness and pierced through her own spirit. Shi Quan's strange Dharma idol suddenly trembled violently. The white sword tomb shattered like a mountain. Many withered bones, mixed with the sword intent of withering, collapsed like an illusory palace made of building block. The withered bones suddenly scattered. Shi Quan instantly returned to her original form. Fine cracks appeared on the blade of the withering sword in her hand, as if caused by the shattering of the sword tomb. However, this great sword immortal who had taken a different path and practiced the evil sword arts had a vicious expression on her face. She spat out mouthfuls of blood on the white bone sword. The cracks were like long, narrow mouths that madly devoured her blood and healed in the blink of an eye. The withering sword became snow-white again. The sword intent of withering was only slightly scattered and not as concentrated as before. Senior Marshal Sister, you can run away. Jining Shuang, who still hadn't forcibly broken through the plain fall cage, looked tired and helpless. She seemed to be secretly complaining about Shi Quan's reckless actions. She didn't want Shi Quan to come, nor did she want Shi Quan to get involved. She was still pondering the wonders of the long river of sword light. She was about to fully comprehend the star-frost sword light that had merged into her body. She had something else to rely on. All she needed was time. However, Shi Quan had been provoked and rushed over at this time to save her. I'm already here. Do you think I'm afraid of death? Shi Quan's expression was cold. She turned around and forced Lola back with a sword strike. She didn't care about the drop of blood that seeped out from the center of her forehead. Alonso, you are a golden Azura. Can't you stand in front of me openly? Aren't you Azura's best at close combat? Do you really want to die? Alonso said in surprise. Can you kill me? Shi Quan sneered. You haven't broken through to the late stage of the carefree realm yet, and the withering sword you've comprehended will hurt you repeatedly. Where did you get your confidence from? Alonso shook his head and hit the nail on the head. Who do you think you are? Whether it's you or that Duyuan, you have no hope of reaching the nascent soul stage in your lifetime. Don't you know that? Sword of destruction, sword of withering. Every time after a fierce battle you will be injured. The two of you aren't great cultivators of the ancient desolate sect. Your flesh is nothing to look at. Your bodies have long been damaged. Don't tell me you don't know that? How laughable. Do you think you're that person from 100,000 years ago? She was born with the divine power of regeneration. Every time she fought, she would be able to heal her hidden injuries without being affected at all. You! Alonso shook his head. With a light lift of his empty hand, a real silver spear appeared in his hand. On the real silver battle spear there was a strange layer of membrane. It was the boundary wall of the world that he had pulled out earlier. Alonso thrust his spear forward. Dazzling divine light that could not be looked at directly penetrated the withering sword intent that filled the sky and the obstruction of countless withered bones. It seemed to pierce a hole in space and time. Shi Quan's blood immediately spilled in the starry sky. She fell onto a nearby snowy peak with the withering sword. Several snowy peaks were smashed to pieces. Shi Quan is one of us. At this time, Zhou Yu, who was far away in another galaxy, gripped his horsetail whisk tightly and turned his head to look at Yu Yuan. Yu Yuan frowned slightly and could not help but look at the snow bear. The snow bear did not turn around. It did not make any extra movements. Roar. It roared majestically, as if to say that the only person it really cared about was Yu Yuan. The rest of the people who broke into the Firefly Star Zone, whether they were the grand cultivators of the Sword Sect from Hauran or the people of the Chamber of Commerce or the Shenhun Sect, would be punished if they dared to act recklessly. This was the first time that it had rejected Yu Yuan's hint. Alonso put away the crystal ball that was made of the pupil of the heavenly star beast. His body flashed and he instantly arrived at the place where Shi Quan fell. "You're too naive," he laughed. With one hand holding the silver spear, the other hand suddenly bloomed with light that was like a silver sun. Countless beams of light suddenly shot down. The snowy mountain range where Shi Quan was hit by the silver beams of light. Shi Quan, who was just about to get up, was instantly hit by hundreds of silver beams of light. Blood immediately gushed out of her body. The withering sword that Shi Quan held tightly became dim and lightless. Its spirituality seemed to have been weakened a lot. "Do you think I don't know who you are, and the wonders of your sword Tao?" Alonso laughed in a low voice as he thrust his silver spear at her again and again. The sharp golden lightning and silver light instantly condensed into tens of thousands of beams. Shi Quan had no choice but to face him head-on with her sword. The circle of pale gray sword energy formed by the withering sword exploded one after another under Alonso's violent attack. Every time it exploded, a portion of the withered sword's spirituality would be lost. Shi Quan looked anxious. She kept glancing at the withering sword, sensing that its soul was weakening and its spirituality was fading. She did not seem to be worried that she would be injured or have a few more holes in her body. She was not afraid that she would be killed by Alonso's silver spear. However, she was afraid that the withering sword would shatter and its soul would vanish. Chapter 1344. Alonso had a relaxed smile on his face. "This sword was forged from your partner's bones. It is indeed extraordinary. There are many people in Vast Swamp, and even in Sword Sect, who believe that you used your partner's bones to create a sword after you killed her." Alonso shook his head slightly and said with a smile, "I know that the truth is not like that. After all, the sword soul inside your immortal sword is your lover. You just changed the way you interact with each other. But you still accompany each other day and night and never leave each other's side." As he spoke, Alonso pointed his silver spear at the tip of the withered sword with incomparable precision. Splat! The strange and magical, withering sword finally gave off a glimmer of light. In the depths of Shi Quan's eyes, just like the sword Tao true art she had comprehended, it also revealed a deathly stillness. It was the same for the withered sword's sword soul and sword intent. She stared blankly at Alonso, her heart filled with shock and disbelief. She was shocked because even most of her fellow Howran sword sect disciples did not know her deeply buried secret. How did this Azura race commander know it so well? For the first time, she felt fear and unease. Too weak. Alonso did not continue to attack. He floated in the air above the heavily injured Shi Quan and looked at Ji Ningxuang in the earth cage. He said, "You should know that there is also a blood exchange between me and the earth cage that imprisons you. I used the earth cage to restrict you while attacking Shi Quan. It didn't take much effort." Many Azura race experts were secretly excited by his word. "You still haven't broken free?" Alonso said with obvious surprise on his face. "I've been waiting for you to break free from the earth cage and work together with her. Why are you so calm?" The tip of the silver spear fell and pointed at the top of Shi Quan's head. His expression was slightly cold. "If I thrust my spear, this senior sister who has protected you for most of your life will die in body and soul. Great Sword Immortal Ji, are you still waiting? Do you really want me to kill her?" Alonso made it clear that he wanted to force Ji Ningxuang to draw her sword and force him to take the initiative to break free from the vegetarian landing cage. Ji Ningxuang's face was calm. She looked at Shi Quan, whose life and death were in Alonso's hands. No one knew what she was thinking. On the other side, Zhou Yu had a bitter expression. He sighed and said, "I'll go first." With a flick of his horsetail whisk, the bloated Zhou Yu instantly opened up a splendid passageway filled with flowing lights and colors, and then abruptly shot through it. "Have mercy!" Zhou Yu's voice suddenly echoed out from the sky above the shattered star where Alonso was. In the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan had been staring at the back of the frigid snow bear. After Zhou Yu left, he finally could not help but move in front of the snow bear. He looked directly at the mysterious frigid snow bear and asked, "What's your attitude?" "Woo, woo." After traveling around, the snow bear let out 2 low growls in an aggrieved voice. The meaning of its growls was: the people from the Sword Sect, including all the cultivators from Hauran, had betrayed Nye Qingtian. They should have died. It was avenging Nye Qingtian in its own way. It wanted to kill the people from the Sword Sect and Shi Quan, who practiced the Withering Sword, in order to take revenge on the Sword Sect. It told Yu Yuan that all the forces in Hauran had participated in Nye Qingtian's death. Moreover, the Sword Sect was the one that participated the most amongst all the powers. Because of this, it viewed the Sword Sect as an enemy. This. Yu Yuan, who had originally wanted to say a few words and plead for mercy, was suddenly at a loss for words. He could completely understand how the snow bear felt. He was even very touched. The heaven-toppling sword had been the Hauran. He had guarded the forbidden realm of the fallen moons and created the sword prison outside to imprison Hauran crooks that had fled to the Starry River. He had helped the 5 supreme forces attack the powerful experts from beyond the Starry River. In the end, he ended up being murdered by his own people. After his death, the 5 supreme forces and the others who knew about him hadn't said a word about him, and had deliberately hidden the various legends about him. The outsiders in the Starry River had been slaughtered by him, and thus had forgotten about that humiliating history. Many intelligent beings in the Starry River and in the Starry River had chosen to forget about him. However, one spirit beast had been thinking about him all this time, and had guarded the river of sword light he had left in the domain of Firefly for hundreds or even thousands of years. It had even wanted to avenge him. On the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan looked at the aggrieved snow bear and was speechless for a long time. He had intended to plead for Shi Quan and say something to ease the situation, but then he remembered that a spirit beast from beyond the Starry River had secretly done so many things after Nye Qingtian's death. "You've had a hard time." In the end, he let out a long sigh. "I've heard a lot about you, Grand Marshal Shura. I'm Zhou Yu, from the Hauran Tongtian Trading Company." After passing through the spatial tunnel, he instantly arrived in front of the fragmentary star where Alonso and Shi Quan were. Then, he pointed his horsetail whisk at Shi Quan and said sincerely, "Can you do the Tongtian Trading Company a favor and let me take her away?" Many people instantly fixed their eyes on Zhou Yu. Inside the snow cage, Jining Shuang's cold eyes suddenly lit up with dazzling light. She had guessed that since Shi Quan had shown up in the domain of Firefly, other members of the Tongtian Trading Company and the Shunhun sect would be arriving one after another. Zhou Yu, on the other hand, was proficient in spatial magics and had become famous before Pei Yuling. If there was anyone who could arrive in a flash, it would be Zhou Yu. She had actually made the right bet. There was another key reason why she hadn't rushed to break the snow cage. She had a feeling that Alonso didn't care about Shi Quan's life at all. What Alonso wanted was to use Shi Quan's life to force her to hastily break through the pristine landing cage. She knew that if she refined the sword aura of Starfrost while activating her backup plan, she would be severely injured in an instant. She might be able to break the snow cage and gain freedom, but it was also very likely that she would be cut off from her path of cultivation because of it. The future of her swordsmanship would also be destroyed here. "Is this what you want, Alonso?" Jining Shuang seemed to have realized something. Seeing that Zhou Yu had indeed shown up, she felt somewhat relieved. "Mr. Zhou, I know that you were imprisoned in the sword prison for many years and that you only came out recently." Alonso nodded with a smile and praised, "I sensed you the moment you showed up in the Firefly Star Zone. Mr. Zhou, you live up to your reputation. You are a much calmer and more agile person than that brat Pei Yuling. If you hadn't come here yourself, it wouldn't have been easy for me to find and trap you. Zhou Yu's expression changed slightly, and a strong feeling of unease rose in his heart. But, Mr. Zhou, do you like to joke? The smile in Alonso's eyes faded bit by bit. His gaze was cold and sharp. I seem to remember that not long ago, our patriarch was plotted against by the Chamber of Commerce and the Shunhun sect in the Thousand-Bird Realm, and almost failed to return to the Dark Realm. Mr. Zhou, please enlighten me. Is this true? Zhou Yu opened his mouth to argue. Crack, crack, crack. A part of the thick cold mist that had surrounded the river of sword aura split and wrapped around the shattered star that Alonso, Shi Quan, and Zhou Yu were standing on. The space seemed to have gradually solidified and was slowly being frozen. Zhou Yu took a deep breath and immediately knew that if he still wanted to use the spatial secret arts he had comprehended to teleport to another place like before, it would be wishful thinking. Why do you think I didn't kill the withered sword? Alonso sneered. I was waiting for you to come to me yourself. The silver spear shook, an endless golden and silver light instantly drowned Zhou Yu. The golden light came from Alonso's blood aura. When it merged with the realm barrier above the spear, it carried a sense of sealing that made it difficult for Zhou Yu to break free. The silver light was the strange power contained in the spear itself. It was cold, sharp, and indestructible. The golden and silver light, which contained the ultimate truths of bloodlines, and the laws that Alonso had comprehended, easily broke through the great spatial seal that surrounded Zhou Yu. Zhou Yu waved his horsetail whisk and flung out new worlds. As soon as they were formed, they were instantly annihilated. He flashed back and forth in the cracks of the worlds he had created out of thin air. However, there was still a terrifying golden and silver light that chased after him like a shadow. While destroying the small world he had constructed, the rays of light continued to leave marks on his fat body. He flew like lightning, but his blood spilled on different worlds. On this shattered planet, many Azura experts watched as their commander first imprisoned Ji Ningxuang with the Empyrean cage, and then heavily injured Shi Quan. He showed that he could kill the withered sword at any time. But he captured and didn't kill, waiting silently. He really did wait until Zhou Yu of the Chamber of Commerce walked right into his trap. He wielded the silver spear and bathed a great cultivator who was proficient in the mysteries of space and had reached the Freedom Realm in blood. On the other side, Du Yuan and Yu Mu were also attacked by 3 platinum Azuras after being injured. They were in a bad situation. As for the sword sect sun god hiding in the dark, he was almost dead. Their commander could be said to be in full control of the situation. Whether it was the guests from Howren or the spies from the Shenhun sect, none of them had gained an advantage. Bang! Even though Zhou Yu didn't summon his Dharma idol, his huge body still landed heavily beside Shi Quan, creating a deep hole in the cold ground. At the bottom of the hole, Zhou Yu moaned and groaned, his voice intermittent. Another one. A cold smile appeared on Alonso's face again. He looked at the hole with a playful gaze. In the next moment, he summoned the crystal ball again. One of his eyes suddenly moved closer to the crystal ball. His pupil gradually turned pure gold, as if there was a golden flame burning inside. Inside the dragon-slaying platform, Yu Yuan's Yin spirit suddenly looked up. He saw a golden sea of light appear out of nowhere in the cold galaxy above the dragon-slaying platform. In the golden sea of light, a flame burned, as if it had been refined into an eye. Humph! He immediately knew that Alonso had used some method to borrow the power of the crystal ball to look at him. He seemed to be showing off something. We Azuras have never been afraid of the forces of Howren, the Shunhun sect, or the Tongtian Trading Company. Alonso's voice rang out from the shattered star and the golden sea of light at the same time. For thousands of years, no living being from Howren has dared to mess around in our Firefly domain. Now that our chief is injured, those from Howren have become more and more unruly. In that case, I'll let them know how we respond to them. Chapter 1345. Bang. Bang bang. In the world that had lost the boundary wall, all the young spirits of the sword sect brought by Yu Mu and Du Yuan instantly exploded. Thump. In another world of absolute frost, Damien was beating the blood-boiling war drum like a madman. Du Yuan, who had been injured by the 7 sword lights and could no longer summon his Dharma idol, was triggered by the sound of the blood-boiling war drum. The hidden injuries caused by the continuous swinging of the Annihilation sword were triggered by the sound of the blood-boiling war drum. Many long, narrow, and fine wounds suddenly appeared on Du Yuan's true body. Many of the wounds were so deep that bones could be seen. Yu Mu, who was holding the heavenly water sword and fighting 2 enemies by himself, lowered his head and looked. His eyes were filled with grief. He knew very well that the Annihilation sword that Du Yuan cultivated was an extreme sword art that could kill 1,000 enemies, but also hurt himself 500 times. He knew that Du Yuan had always had hidden injuries, and they would only worsen as he swung his sword. What he didn't expect was that Damien's blood-boiling war drum could target Du Yuan's hidden injuries. He also didn't expect Alonso of the Azura race to know so much about it. Jining Shuang was imprisoned in the Sulu cage, Shi Quan and Zhou Yu were severely injured, Yu Mu was surrounded by 2 platinum Azuras, and Du Yuan's hidden injuries were ignited by the war drum. The other young god sword immortals had all died in a short period of time. Alonso's strategy had deterred the intruders from all sides with his terrifying fighting strength and exquisite control of his power. Within the golden sea of light, his cold shout was just as resounding. Yu Yuan, who was at the center of the dragon-slaying platform, looked at the frigid snow bear in silence. The snow bear's eyes were filled with coldness. The shattered star under Alonso's feet was enveloped in cold mist the moment Zhou Yu arrived. This was clearly not the work of the commander-in-chief. It was his power. It was him who had worked with Alonso to control the situation in the Firefly domain, one in the open and the other in the dark. It borrowed Alonso's silver battle spear to avenge Nye Qintian. It wanted to kill Du Yuan, Yu Mu, Shi Quan, many sword cultivators, and Zhou Yu, who dared to enter. It didn't care about the life and death of anyone from Howren other than Yu Yuan. I won't make things difficult for you. Yu Yuan sighed softly. As he stood on the dragon-slaying platform, he thought about the shattered star beneath Alonso's feet and used the superpower left behind by the dragon of space and time. Whoosh! The rectangular dragon beheading platform suddenly shot out with a white, jade-like radiance. In the blink of an eye, they had passed several extremely cold stars. Colorful ripples appeared and disappeared from time to time in the river of stars that flashed on the dragon beheading platform. The dragon beheading platform would occasionally disappear and reappear. Every time it appeared, it would travel across the starry river and get closer to the fragmentary star Alonso was standing on. After he left, the frigid snow bear growled a few times in frustration. It seemed to be talking to the Azura race's commander-in-chief in the sea of golden light. It guarded Yu Yuan's true body and the star where the mouth of the frigid abyss was, but its gaze kept moving because of the dragon beheading platform's departure. Every time the dragon beheading platform reappeared, it would be the first to fix its gaze on it. It was faster and more accurate than Alonso. 9 times in a row. The dragon beheading platform, which contained Yu Yuan's nether soul, finally approached the river of sword light and arrived in front of the fragmentary star. A translucent, icy energy shield filled with the frigid snow bear's aura blocked the dragon beheading platform. Below it was the fragmentary star. Yu Yuan could already see Jining Shuang, who was trapped in the snowfall cage, and Shi Quan, whose face was ashen, as if she had lost most of her energy. He also saw Zhou Yu, who had been blasted into the underground cave, crawling out covered in blood. Zhou Yu looked at Shi Quan, who was very close to him, with a bitter smile on his face. He even complained in a low voice. Fizz! Fizz! The translucent, icy energy shield that the dragon beheading platform pointed at suddenly gathered a vast amount of frost energy and became thicker and sturdier. It was so sturdy that the dragon beheading platform, which was controlled by Yu Yuan's nether soul, couldn't break it in an instant. He knew that the snow bear, who was far away in the starry river, was using this method to prevent him from landing on the fragmentary star below. It didn't want him to interfere too much. Heh! On the fragmentary star, Alonso looked up at the dragon beheading platform, which was as white as jade, with a half-smile. Zhou Yu, Shi Quan, and Ji Ningxuang, who was trapped in the snowfall cage, followed his gaze and looked up. However, they couldn't see anything, nor did they discover anything unusual. However, they also sensed that someone else had arrived, right outside the sealed space. Unfortunately, the strange cold mist blocked their vision and blurred their senses, so they couldn't see the dragon beheading platform. Sorry, there's someone inside that I have to protect. Inside the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan gently pressed the sharp end of the dragon beheading platform against the translucent, icy energy shield and transmitted his soul will and will. I'm going in. He attempted to summon the auras of the frost dragon and the space dragon from the two worlds. However, before he could finish gathering power, a small opening suddenly appeared in the icy barrier in front of the dragon beheading platform, and the dragon beheading platform, which was controlled by his nether soul, flew into it. The dragon beheading platform! Shi Quan and Zhou Yu exclaimed at the same time. The snowfall cage, which was woven with gold and silver threads and imprinted with the wonders of Alonso's bloodline and radiated the unique light of a holy artifact, suddenly lit up with two balls of brilliant starlight. They were Ji Ningxuang's eyes. The sword of star frost, which had been trapped in the Shura race's sacred artifact, the Sualua cage, for a long time without moving, suddenly moved because of the appearance of the dragon beheading platform and because she saw the figure she had been thinking about for more than 300 years. She gently held the long, thin, and sharp sword of star frost in her left hand. A sharp sword intent flowed through the blade of the sword. Frosty crystals the size of fingernails were condensed from drops of her blood, forming a sea of stars in front of her chest. There were dozens of frozen crystals, which looked like blood-red stars. She used the star frost sword to slowly move in the sea of stars that was as red as blood. She moved the stars. Stop! Yu Yuan, who had passed through the translucent, icy energy shield, and carried the dragon beheading platform with his nether soul, only took a glance at the sea of stars and sensed that something was wrong. When the sea of stars took shape, Ji Ningxuang had clearly lost a lot of weight. Alonso clapped his hands and laughed. Impressive! Impressive! You've already carved a miniature map of the stars in your heart after moving around in the domain of Firefly for a while. What's even more shocking is that you can use your own blood to condense frost crystals and simulate the distribution of stars. Aren't you a great sword immortal of the sword sect? How did you integrate the star races, or the star moon sects, secret incantations into your sword incantations? Even the ancestors of the sword sect who created the sword of star frost didn't have such great comprehension ability and magnificent aura. The Azura race's commander-in-chief couldn't stop laughing as he praised. Don't be hasty, Yu Yuan. I promised you that I'd keep her alive. I'll keep my word. Alonso looked up at Yu Yuan's nether soul inside the dragon beheading platform, who seemed very anxious. What's wrong? You don't trust me? Why did you have to come here? You don't have to. If you know my reputation, you'll know that I'm very trustworthy. His words suddenly paused. Alonso stared deeply at Ji Ningxuang. His attention, the silver spear in his hand, and the crystal ball were all stimulated by him. As if facing a great enemy, he stared at the sea of stars that was gradually becoming brighter and brighter in the center of the snowfall cage. Attack! I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. His face, eyes, slightly trembling body, and the silver spear that was glowing with holy light seemed to be telling others just how excited he was. He seemed unusually excited. Everyone's eyes were focused on the snowfall cage. They were looking at Jining Shuang, who was madly accumulating sword energy and preparing to unleash her strongest attack. The sea of stars and the blood-red sea of stars in front of her chest corresponded to the various worlds in the Firefly Star Zone. The sword intent she had comprehended surpassed the creator of the Sword of Star Frost and all the sword cultivators of her lineage. In terms of mastery of the Sword of Starfrost, she was already the strongest in her generation. She could become even stronger. Everyone felt that she had a chance to reach the nascent soul stage. She might be the next supreme existence after Nye Qintian, whose killing power shocked the races in outer space and was destined to be recorded in the history books. However, at this moment, she cast her gaze toward the dragon-slaying platform with a slightly regretful look on her face, as well as the Een God's soul projection that had appeared with incomparable clarity. She was full of longing for the world and the ultimate path of the sword. Her plump lips trembled slightly. Looking at the figure that appeared in her dreams countless times, she murmured in a voice that only she could hear, "I don't want anything to happen to you." Chapter 1346. No! Yu Yuan yelled angrily. He understood exactly what Jining Shuang wanted to express and what Jining Shuang was thinking. This girl was afraid that he would be killed by Alonso because of his sudden arrival. Therefore, she did not hesitate and chose to unleash a shocking attack. She clearly did not know about the special relationship between him and the frigid snow bear. She also did not know that he and Alonso had reached a secret agreement not long ago. She also did not know that he, who controlled the dragon beheading platform, could easily escape even if he could not defeat Alonso. She did not know that the frigid snow bear would save him with an icy energy shield when his life was in danger. She did not know anything. She naturally thought that she was on the same side as the Shenhun sect. Since the Shenhun sect had severely injured the Shura of Gojoseon, Alonso would not let her go. She thought that Alonso had not attacked because he was waiting for Zhou, but also because he was waiting for her. She was afraid that she would be killed by Alonso in an instant. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! Tens of thousands of tiny sword lights shot out of the blood-red sea of stars. Many of them were the size of fingernails and contained divine power. Divine power was the ultimate manifestation of the laws of the sword. I knew it. The master of the sword sect stripped his divine power and poured it into the scabbard of your Star Frost sword. You're a precious treasure that he values, so he'll naturally protect you until you ascend to the peak of the sword Tao. Alonso was not shocked. Instead, he was overjoyed and laughed. More than a dozen profound, mysterious, and ancient sword auras mixed with the sword auras of the Star Frost sword, and flashed in many of the star crystals that were as red as blood. Boom! Boom boom boom! In the Firefly Star Zone, some of the cold places where the Azura race lived suddenly collapsed. The sword lights hidden by the master of the sword sect had already reached the divine level. Through the simulated Firefly Star Zone she had created, the sword energy had seeped into the corresponding worlds of the bright red stars. Roar! The snow bear's roar seemed to echo throughout the entire Firefly Star Zone. The cold mist that had spread throughout the vast galaxy and surrounded the outer layer of all the realm walls was now like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins, instantly surging into the interior of the star. The frigid mist, which existed year-round in every star, started to spread to those realms and stabilize the mountains and earth. Repair the underground core that had been severely damaged by the sword sect master's sword energy. Puff, puff, puff. One by one, the bright red stars shattered in front of Jining Shuang's chest. She, who had yet to ascend to the primordial soul stage, had forcefully activated and controlled the divine might of the sword sect master, causing her to be injured as well. However, the golden and silver radiance of the plane landing cage couldn't hold on either. Sword sect master's unmatched sword radiance, the divine sword radiance pierced through the cage on its own, penetrating outside. The blood at the corner of Jining Shuang's mouth flowed uncontrollably. Her delicate face was drained of color. She appeared to be as pale and weak as Shi Quan. Only her star-frost sword was still bright and dazzling. When the crack grew larger, the sword radiance wrapped around her body, which appeared extremely thin due to the excessive blood loss, and shot out of the plane landing cage. Jining Shuang broke free of the plane landing cage. Whoosh! Her slender and thin figure hovered beside the dragon-slaying platform. She, who held the star-frost sword in one hand, used the sleeve of her other hand to wipe the blood at the corner of her mouth. Her bright eyes faintly revealed restrained joy and excitement. She looked deeply at the dragon-slaying platform and Yu Yuan, who was inside. Her pale face shone with a frost-like luster. Long time no see. She bit her lower lip lightly, appearing somewhat nervous. The hand that wasn't holding the sword unconsciously pinched the corner of her clothes. Then, she felt that it was inappropriate and let go. But when she opened her mouth, the hand that she let go unconsciously pinched the sleeve of her blood-stained sleeve. The specks of small crystals were no longer bright red like blood. Instead, they were like fine white porcelain jades scattered around her and naturally surrounded her. This made her look like a celestial being who had long transcended the mortal world. But the aura she exuded, her expression, and her actions were like a young girl who had just experienced her first awakening of love. When facing the man she liked, she was full of shyness and uneasiness. Inside the dragon-slaying platform, Yu Yuan heard her say, "Long time no see," and felt as if a lifetime had passed. In the blink of an eye, more than 300 years had passed. Scene after scene of the two of them together in their previous lives suddenly surged into Yu Yuan's mind. The young girl carried an immortal sword on her back and soared through the mountains and rivers of Hauran with him, killing his old enemies for him, exploring many dangerous places, helping him collect rare spiritual herbs, and talking about the past under the candlelight under the moon suddenly became incomparably clear. He suddenly knew that no matter how much time had passed, no matter how many years had passed, he had never forgotten those scenes. Those memories were so deep that they had long been engraved in his soul. They had never been erased. Yu Yuan's Yin spirit made a meaningless action of taking a deep breath. Silly girl. He revealed a pained smile and looked at the beautiful girl in front of him, who had wiped away the blood at the corner of her mouth. But her delicate and beautiful face didn't have much color. "You don't have to use your sword. Alonso might not be able to kill me." "No." Jining Shuang gently shook her head. As if there were eyes on her back, she felt the gaze of the Shura clan's commander-in-chief. "You don't understand him. You don't know that no matter who it is, they can't truly restrain him or make him truly obedient. Shura of Gojoseon can't do it, and neither can that violent bear in this galaxy. Also, you're now where his true body is. What you're facing is no longer a drop of golden blood." She guessed that Alonso had left earlier because Yu Yuan knew a lot of things that had happened. But she had her own judgment. Yu Yuan's soul shadow on the dragon beheading platform trembled slightly because of her words. Suddenly, Yu Yuan realized that she might be right. If even the Shura of Gojoseon Sabonis couldn't completely restrain Alonso, then Violent Bear probably couldn't make Alonso listen to him either. Alonso only respected Tyrannical Bear when he was cooperating with the Azura race and supporting them. If Alonso felt that Yu Yuan had to die, he would most likely pretend to listen to Violent Bear's orders, and then suddenly kill him at a certain moment, killing him instantly. Jining Shuang was right. Alonso had only been formed by a drop of golden blood and his soul. Alonso hadn't been complete at all. He wasn't a true rank 10 golden shura. Jining Shuang turned around and floated side by side with the dragon beheading platform. She held the star-frost sword in front of her and looked deeply at Alonso, who was standing on the cold ground with a smile on his face. "I've attacked as you wished. Are you satisfied?" Alonso bowed politely. After he stood up straight again, he smiled and said, "I'm very satisfied." After pondering for a moment, he held the crystal ball in one hand and the silver spear in the other and flew into the sky at the same altitude as Yu Yuan and Jining Shuang. "Yu Yuan, I promised you that she would be alive. Also, I promised her." Alonso chuckled and pointed at the energy curtain that covered the shattered star. "You can leave now. Take our great sword Immortal G with you and travel around the Firefly Star Zone. As long as you and Great Sword Immortal G don't attack our people, the two of you will be free." After a pause, he looked at Zhou Yu and Shi Quan. His expression turned cold. "The rest of you aren't within the scope of my promise. Damn it, you still have to die." Fizz. The sword's soul seemed to know that Shi Quan couldn't survive. Swoosh. The elemental cage appeared again and covered Shi Quan. The golden threads and silver light that were as thin as hair pierced into Shi Quan's body. Shi Quan's spirit energy, sword energy, and soul thought were pierced by the power hidden in the elemental cage. Boom. 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 The sword's soul and the withered sword died together with Shi Quan in the elemental cage. Chapter 1347. Shi Quan died just like that. She, who was trapped in the plane landing cage, fell silent along with the withered sword, which had been refined from her beloved bones. Both the Azura warriors and Zhou Yu knew that this great sword immortal had lost all of her life force. Even her soul had disappeared in the plane landing cage. She had truly died in both body and soul. The Azura commander had been chatting with Yu Yuan while secretly killing Shi Quan. In the blink of an eye, Shi Quan had been killed. His method was incomparably ruthless. There was still a faint smile on Alonso's face, as if he had just done something insignificant. Zhou Yu's chubby face no longer had a trace of a smile. He, who had mocked and reprimanded Shi Quan earlier, had a grim expression on his face. He didn't even say a word of threat. He didn't mention the Shunhun sect and the Chamber of Commerce to intimidate Alonso, because he knew that it was meaningless. He was thinking about how to get out of this predicament and get rid of Alonso. If there were no mishaps, he would be Alonso's next target. His eyes flickered. The spatial spirit energy in his body flowed rapidly like a fine river. Senior Marshal Sister, beside the dragon beheading platform, Jining Shuang exuded a strong sense of sorrow. After she let out a low cry, she stared blankly at the skeleton in the plane landing cage and the withered sword that had been broken into several pieces. She didn't attack because she couldn't attack at the moment. The moment she had forcibly broken free from the plane landing cage, she had fully activated the sword energy that the master of the sword sect had imprinted on the scabbard of the Starfrost sword. Then, she had covered it with the extremely dazzling light of the Starfrost sword she had comprehended. Finally, she had broken the cage and caused damage to many stars in the Firefly domain. This sword had consumed too much of her spirit energy and soul energy. Her body had also suffered serious injuries because of it. Now, many of her internal organs had been severely damaged, and her meridians had split open. She stood together with Yu Yuan. In fact, she was secretly gathering as much spirit energy as she could to recover. However, it had not accumulated to the point where she could once again use the Starfrost sword and display that unparalleled sword light. Shi Quan had come because of her, and because of her, she had died in Alonso's hands. She was filled with grief, indignation, and anger. How could she not want to draw her sword? Puff. Losing control of her emotions caused the wound in her chest to suddenly burst open, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood. Her face instantly turned even paler. Yu Yuan, why haven't you taken her away yet?" When Alonso saw her coughing up another mouthful of blood uncontrollably, he seemed to be attracted by it. Smiling, he looked towards the dragon beheading platform and said, "I've already said that I'll keep my promise and keep her alive." However, the Azura race's commander-in-chief shook his head with a cold smile. "I'm afraid it won't be that easy for her to break through to the primordial spirit transformation realm in the future. Her serious injuries would have hidden dangers. Her sword intent was covered in dust, and she would have a shadow in her heart. This shadow will become a powerful mental demon in the future. It will act up when she tries to break through to the primordial spirit." Her good senior apprentice sister came to save her, but she died in front of her. She can only watch helplessly from the side. There's nothing she can do. Alonso finally couldn't control his joy anymore. He laughed wildly in the sky above the shattered star. "Next, Sword of Destruction, Du Yuan will die. Sword of Heavenly Water, Yu Mu will also die. As for the other young gods of the Sword sect, they're all dead. Great Sword Immortal Ji, they all died because of you." Alonso wanted to kill people and destroy their hearts. Because of his words, Jining Shuang's injuries were affected and worsened. She didn't continue to spit out blood, but her face was as pale as paper. Her originally bright eyes were dull and lifeless, as if she had been infected by Shi Quan's withering sword. "Yes, it's because of me. It's all because of me," she muttered in a daze. Every time she said a word, every time she thought more, a demonic seed would be planted in the depths of her heart. It would explode at a certain moment in the future and become a terrifying mental demon. Her sword heart and Tao heart were no longer clear and pure. Swish! At this moment, the long dragon beheading platform suddenly slashed towards Alonso like a sharp blade. Time and space suddenly twisted. The icy energy curtain that enveloped the shattered star seemed to be mobilized by the remaining power of the frost dragon, making the dragon beheading platform incomparably bright and cold. Yu Yuan's god on the dragon beheading platform looked indifferent, as if he wasn't affected at all. A streak of dazzling light shot towards the top of Alonso's head. Alonso clenched the silver spear tightly. He gently flicked it and the dazzling light scattered. The tip of the spear pointed at the dragon beheading platform, and dazzling light burst out, making everyone present unable to open their eyes. Everyone was not only blinded at this moment but also deaf. They couldn't see or hear. When the dazzling light that blinded and deafened everyone gradually became less dazzling, Zhou Yu let out a muffled groan and moved away with a secret spatial technique. He moved to the other side of the shattered star. A huge crater that was dozens of meters deep appeared where he had been standing. Inside the crater, balls of silver-like holy light were exploding. It turned out that Alonso had secretly made a move again. He had a part of his blood power hidden in the depths of this icy star. After suddenly erupting, he had caught Shi Quan off guard and killed him tragically. Just now, he had wanted to use the same method to kill Zhou Yu. "Yu Yuan, you've crossed the line by interfering." After putting away his spear, Alonso stared coldly at Yu Yuan's soul shadow on the dragon beheading platform and transmitted a soul voice. "Kill!" Lola and the other Platinum Azura immediately pounced on the fleeing Zhou Yu. Lola, who was even taller and more muscular than the male Azura, activated her bloodline talent. Many shattered rocks flew out of the surrounding and smashed towards Zhou Yu. After being infused with blood power by Lola, every rock seemed to have been refined again. They all flashed with a cold metallic luster, and were thousands of times heavier. As the rocks whistled, the Platinum Azura that cooperated with her let out a low growl. Thousands of silver lightning bolts were densely produced in the space where Zhou Yu was. This thin and small Platinum Azura had sharp spikes protruding from his back. He looked like a strange fish as he waved his hands, producing many bolts of lightning. Zhou Yu swung his horsetail whisk, and a sky full of light blades flew out and intertwined with the lightning bolts. Before the huge silver rocks could get close, they were cut into pieces by Zhou Yu's spatial light and turned into rubble. Boom! Suddenly, a huge light wave shot out from Lola's palms. While Zhou Yu was flustered, the light wave hit his chest and sent his bloated body flying into the sky. The fish-like Platinum Azura took the opportunity to rush to Zhou Yu's side and engage him in a battle. At this time, Alonso didn't attack again. Instead, he used the crystal ball in his other hand to repair the seven-colored tunnel of light that had been torn by the dragon beheading platform. His cold eyes were fixed on the dragon beheading platform and Jining Shuang, who was standing with her sword. At the center of the dragon-slaying platform, Yu Yuan's Yin God was running at full speed. Rays of golden light and silver lightning actually penetrated the dragon beheading platform's sturdy defenses and entered the inner world, trying to attack his Yin soul. Alonso actually had the ability to send his power in. Although the golden light and silver lightning were quickly melted by the dragon beheading platform's ability when they chased after Yu Yuan's Yin soul, they quickly faded and disappeared. However, Yu Yuan was still shocked by Alonso. The dragon beheading platform was a divine artifact. Although the most important part was still in the Howran Great Realm, it was still a divine artifact due to the existence of many dragon corpses and the hidden divine power of the dragon beheading platform. It wasn't something the current evil demon cauldron could compare to. Yu Yuan, who could use the dragon beheading platform to travel freely in the small world refined by the Chaos Kuan, felt a little serious at this moment. He was indeed shocked by Alonso's terrifying combat strength. With a light thrust of the spear, the tip of the spear was retracted. He did not even see any obvious power seeping through. After Alonso withdrew his spear, many rays of golden and silver light suddenly shot out from the dragon beheading platform. The light chased after him. If he hadn't reacted in time, if he wasn't the master of the dragon beheading platform but Consort Han, he might have been killed. The invisible law of order gradually formed under the dragon beheading platform and in the sky. Yu Yuan's Yin deity could sense the subtle changes in the air with great clarity. Oh! Alonso's silver-gray eyes suddenly shone with a terrifying light. Chapter 1348. He saw the purple-gold dragon egg. Every speck of golden light and silver light was his eyes, and they all contained his memories and consciousness. Inside the dragon-slaying platform, at the center of the small world where the dragon of space and time was buried, he only felt that the egg of the infant Titanspinosaurus was strange when he saw it. He even ignored it very quickly. He wasn't surprised when the dragon-slaying platform's own power crushed the golden light and silver light he had secretly entered. He knew that since it was that legendary divine artifact, since it was a relic left behind by that person, it should have this kind of power, and should be able to destroy all traces of him. What truly shocked, unsettled, and even terrified him was, when all the golden light and silver light disappeared, he suddenly thought of that strange purple-gold egg in his mind, and the golden heart in his chest suddenly tightened. Then, a tremor came from the depths of his bloodline origin. It was because of that giant purple-gold egg. Even Alonso didn't know the origins of that giant purple-gold egg in the dragon-slaying platform. When he had entered the purple-gold light and silver light, he hadn't deliberately looked at the giant egg. He hadn't sensed what was inside. But the tremor in his bloodline and the tightness in his heart seemed to be telling him that the purple-gold egg and the thing inside it had once terrified the creator of the Azura race and the origin of their bloodline in an incomparably distant era. Fear came from the depths of his bloodline, as if it was innate. It was as if the first existence of their race had been hunted down by the unknown thing inside the giant egg and lived under its shadow. This lesson was so deeply rooted that it was imprinted in the blood of future generations. Because he was Alonso, a true golden Azura, he could keenly sense this and comprehend this astonishing profundity. Crack! The strange sound of space cracking came from the starry sky above everyone's heads. Yu Yuan looked up and found that the icy light curtain formed by the frigid snow bear that enveloped the shattered star shattered like glass. Then, it turned back into a thick cold mist and surrounded by rivers of sword light. Snow Bear, who was far away on the other side of the Milky Way, undid the seal on this world. A roar filled with irritation and warning suddenly rang out from the depths of the cold fog that was so thick that it could not be dispersed. This warning was aimed at Alonso. Because Alonso had almost harmed Yu Yuan's own spirit, it was enraged and dissatisfied. Therefore, it no longer cooperated with Alonso and stopped using the icy light curtain to seal this place. It let out a low roar. Zhou Yu, who was on the verge of despair, felt as though he had heard the sound of nature. Zhou Yu, who had been attacked by the two platinum Azuras, had been injured in a short period of time. His bloated body had more than a dozen wounds. What flowed out of the wound was not blood, but rainbow-colored light. This freak from the Tongtian Trading Company had obviously secretly cultivated some kind of secret technique to strengthen his physique. Not only was he agile, he was also incomparably strong. "Haha, thank you, thank you." Zhou Yu laughed dryly and waved the horsetail whisk in his hand. In the eyes of Lola and the Platinum Azura, more than a dozen Zhou youths suddenly appeared. Lola and the Platinum Azura were only stunned for a moment before Zhou Yu escaped. He arrived in the Star River, close to the cold fog. Behind him was the long river of sword light. He seemed to be smiling, but there was no smile in his eyes. Instead, they were heavy. "I was almost careless and was surrounded and killed. Alonso, I'll remember what you did today." Before Violent Bear broke the seal that shattered the world below, he did not say anything even if Shi Quan died. That was because, as long as the seal was not broken, he would not be free. He was going to die anyway without Violent Bear's help. He returned to the Star River and felt that there was no more restriction. He knew that if Alonso continued to attack now, he might not be able to take him down. With this confidence, he dared to threaten him. Although, he also knew that it might not be effective against Alonso. As expected, after threatening him, he found that Alonso did not even look at him, as if he did not hear him. Even though Violent Bear's growl had shocked many of the Azuras present, it hadn't startled Alonso. It hadn't made Alonso lose his head. Alonso's silver-gray eyes were fixed on the dragon beheading platform. His heart was beating like deafening thunder. Lola and the fish-like Platinum Azura did not know what was going on. They looked at their commander-in-chief with strange and inquiring gazes. Obviously, they were all silently waiting for Alonso's next clear instruction. Because Violent Bear had roared and issued a warning, they could not understand the specific meaning. They did not know what Violent Bear was angry about, so they could only wait for Alonso's answer. Jining Shuang, who was holding her sword, forcibly suppressed her state of mind that was about to go out of control due to Shi Quan's death. She deliberately looked away from the plain fall cage and turned her head to look at the dragon beheading platform. She felt that something was wrong, so she softly said, to seek an answer from Yu Yuan. "What is that?" Alonso was the first to speak. The crystal ball in his hand and the silver battle spear exploded with a vast and holy light at the same time. The water-like radiance enveloped Alonso's entire body, making him appear sacred and dignified. "What is that?" He raised his voice, stared at Yu Yuan's God Soul Shadow, and repeated his words. "What did you say?" Yu Yuan also looked a little confused. He did not know what this Azura race commander-in-chief was up to. "What is that egg?" Alonso was almost roaring. He was handsome, had a feminine temperament, and was unusually vicious. He had always been good at controlling his emotions and rarely roared like this. The current him was very unlike himself. Lola and all the Azuras who were familiar with him were shocked by his roar. They looked at him, not knowing what to do. What happened? What did the commander-in-chief see in the dragon beheading platform? Why did he lose control like this? The Azuras were shocked. They guessed and looked at the dragon beheading platform involuntarily. Their eyes could not wait to see through the platform and into the world inside. Everyone only saw Yu Yuan's soul shadow. Other than that, they saw turbid white clouds and the outline of a dragon-shaped mountain range. Where was the egg? You're wrong. There is nothing. Yu Yuan's god in the dragon beheading platform responded with an indifferent expression. Then he said to Jining Shuang, "Let's leave that shattered star first and return to the sea of stars outside. The Firefly Star Zone is so big. Since we're here, let's take a look." Jining Shuang was full of questions. She knew that there was something she didn't know. Alonso must have discovered it. She did not ask and did not think too much at this time. Instead, she lowered her head and looked at Shi Quan's corpse in the Sualua cage. Then she slowly flew into the stars with the dragon beheading platform. Whoosh! Whoosh! Thousands of star frost sword lights rapidly condensed from her acupoints and palms. They circled around her once again, forming a shield of sword energy. Through the short period of rest and adjustment, the injuries in her internal organs were forcibly suppressed by her. While she and the dragon beheading platform were trying to get out of the shattered star below, her cold and painful eyes had been paying attention to the movement of the cold mist. She was worried that the mysterious, violent bear would secretly take action and cooperate with Alonso to impose the seal. Unexpectedly, the cold mist wrapped in the river of sword lights didn't move at all when she and the dragon beheading platform entered the vast sea of stars from the shattered star. She was relieved. Suddenly, she saw Du Yuan and Yu Mu struggling in another world of absolute cold. Swoosh! A sword light mixed with many small crystals flew out of her palm and disappeared in a flash. The pure, ubiquitous cold energy in the Firefly Star Zone suddenly fused with the sword light crazily, making the small crystals shine brilliantly. When the sword light was at its brightest, it suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, the sword light had already reached the inside of the Sualua cage. It triggered the remaining sword energy of Shi Quan and the withered sword, forming a strange force that pierced through the gold light and the silver threads. The Sualua cage, that the Azura race had built to capture and kill the Howran dragons, was pierced through by the sword light that suddenly exploded. Many of the gold and silver threads of the Sualua cage were also cut off. Alonso's face instantly became cold and gloomy. "Just leave. How dare you attack again? Do you really think you can't die?" Chapter 1349. Yu Yuan was also shocked by Jining Shuang's actions. Alonso's battle prowess was unusually fierce, and Jining Shuang was clearly injured. Therefore, he wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. Then, he would wait for reinforcements from the Shunhun sect and the Tongtian Trading Company to arrive before he could settle the score with Alonso. He thought that Jining Shuang had already understood his intentions. ZZZT. ZZZT ZZZT. At this moment, the tiny sword light was still swimming in the snow-earth cage, dismantling the cage that the Azura race had painstakingly built with many precious spirit materials like a butcher dismembering an ox. Moreover, it seemed that Jining Shuang hadn't used up too much of her sword energy. She, who had been trapped in the snow-earth cage for a long time, seemed to have understood the intricacies of this holy artifact. She had used her sword to deal with the root of the problem, and used her hidden sword energy to destroy the invisible blood patterns in the depths of the cage. She had also caused some of Alonso's blood abilities to fail. Amazing, truly amazing! Zhou Yu immediately praised. He felt that this Star Frost sword skills had reached perfection. He couldn't believe that she could damage the Azura race's holy artifact to such a degree. Whoosh! Jining Shuang controlled the Star Frost sword, and turned into a streak of light that flew towards the world of frost where Du Yuan and Yu Mu were. After she escaped from the shattered star, she didn't temporarily stop as Yu Yuan had expected. She was going to save Du Yuan and Yu Mu. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! Strange sounds came from the depths of the river of sword light surrounded by cold mist. Alonso, who had just threatened Jining Shuang, turned serious when he heard the strange sounds coming from the depths of the river of sword light. He actually didn't hurry to chase after Jining Shuang. Instead, he looked into the depths of the thick cold mist and asked something in the ancient Azura language that Yu Yuan and most of the Azura race clansmen couldn't understand. Zhou Yu, who had moved to the dragon beheading platform and was now in the same area of the starry river as Yu Yuan, shrewdly sensed that something was wrong, and thus said, "The residual power in those rivers of sword light is gradually weakening the suppression it exerts on the sword sect disciples. Because Du Yuan and Yu Mu are so close to this place, their strength has been restricted. The existence of the Sword Light River has reduced their sword power by at least 30%, preventing them from displaying their full strength. In addition, they were already injured, and Du Yuan was struck by 7 sword lights. Their situation is even more miserable." But now Zhou Yu looked very confused. He couldn't figure out whether the weakening of the Sword Light River's suppression on the sword sect was caused by that violent bear, Jining Shuang, or Yu Yuan's main body that was far away in another galaxy? Yu Yuan's true body and the scabbard might have such an ability. Roar! In the depths of the thick cold mist, the roar of the frigid snow bear rang out again. The roar was filled with anger. Many of the Azuras present, including Yu Yuan and Zhou Yu, understood the reason behind the angry roar. It wasn't this mysterious snow bear that had affected the Sword Light River and weakened the suppression on the sword sect. It wasn't me either, Yu Yuan answered casually. Then, he stared at the flying star frost sword, and sensed the frigid power of the Firefly domain gathering from all directions and merging into the sword and Jining Shuang's slender body, which was severely injured. To his surprise, Jining Shuang's injuries were healing at an astonishing speed. The moment this genius of the sword sect had forcibly broken out of the pure landing cage, she had been so severely injured that she didn't even have the strength to swing her sword. Earlier, she could only stand aside and watch her senior sister die. Who would have thought that she would damage the pure landing cage and use the Starfrost sword to save Du Yuan and Yu Mu in such a short period of time? She had even activated the Sword Light River's hidden ability and slowly unraveled the power Nye Qin Tian had left behind to keep the sword sect in check. Unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. Alonso was also shocked after hearing Bao Xiong's answer. Then, a drop of golden blood seeped out of his palm. The finger-sized drop of golden blood bathed in holy golden light and created a suction force that sucked the pure landing cage into it. The Azura race's holy artifact shrank and soaked in a drop of Qin Li's golden blood. The drop of golden blood then returned to his body from his palm, where it was used to nourish the pure landing cage and slowly repair the holy relic. You can't blame me for this, Yu Yuan. She was the one who wanted to cause trouble. With these words, Alonso picked up his silver spear and shot into the sky. He traveled thousands of kilometers in a breath, heading straight for the star where Du Yuan and Yu Mu were. As soon as he moved, Yu Yuan and Zhou Yu prepared to teleport away at any moment. They were afraid that this sinister and vicious Azura race's commander-in-chief would suddenly appear beside them like a ghost and stab them with his spear. Fortunately, Alonso's target seemed to be that star. Alonso wanted to kill Du Yuan, Yu Mu, and Jining Shuang there. Should we go there? Zhou Yu smiled bitterly as he glanced at Shi Quan's corpse and the broken pieces of the withered sword. You've seen Alonso's shocking battle prowess. Unless the two nascent divinity realm experts of the sword sect, President Li or the God Kings. He shook his head. Kill them. Lola and the strange fish-like platinum Azura suddenly flew out from the cracked ground. Rumble! Rumble! The low roar of the battleships suddenly sounded. Then, the Star River battleships, which had been anchored for a long time, rushed into the void one after another. On those warships there were hundreds of rank 8 and 7 Azura warriors. However, to Yu Yuan and Zhou Yu's surprise, whether it was Lola or the Celestial River battleships, they were not targeted at them. At the same time, a beam of grayish-white sword light, as thick as 2 fingers, flew out from Shi Quan's corpse. It carried an aura of desolation as it headed toward a long river of sword light in the void. The sword light contained the withered sword intent, but it didn't contain Shi Quan's soul imprint. Shi Quan was dead, but the withered sword incantation she had comprehended didn't dissipate. Instead, it was being gathered by the long river of sword light. Shi Quan and that guy have both betrayed the sword sect. Is that why they were accepted by the long river of sword light? Yu Yuan asked with a dazed look on his face. On the dragon beheading platform, Jining Shuang's figure was reflected in their vision. They saw that Jining Shuang had officially entered that strangely cold world. They also saw that Du Yuan and Yu Mu were invigorated by her arrival. Alonso rushed out with a silver spear in his hand. He was about to enter that world of ice and attack the 3 great sword immortals of the sword sect. Lola, the Platinum Azura, and the Star River battleships headed to the other side. The faint cry of a crane echoed out from where they were heading. The cry of a crane was full of killing intent and madness, as if it contained the power of death. The crane of death. Jun Chen is here. Zhou Yu's beady eyes suddenly lit up. This grand cultivator who was well versed in spatial magics sneered. Shi Quan had the unique medallion of the Chamber of Commerce. Her death is a strong signal. The Chamber of Commerce will sense it. Shi Quan's death will definitely make the Azura pay the price. On the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan's Yin soul heard the cry of a crane, but he didn't see the crane of death. He also didn't see why the first guest elder of the Tongtian Trading Company had come, or where he was hiding. But he knew that Alonso had clearly sensed the arrival of Junchen and the crane of death. Perhaps it was through the crystal ball in his hand, or through the communication with the snow bear. If Junchen is here, even Alonso won't be able to win easily. Zhou Yu seemed to have great confidence in the first guest elder, so when he heard the cry of a crane, he immediately calmed down. Yu Yuan, just wait and see. Kill Alonso and the Platinum Azuras first. Yu Yuan shouted. Don't worry. The Azuras are our common enemies. Zhou Yu said with a cold face. At this moment, an uninvited guest also arrived in the world of ice hidden in the mouth of the frigid abyss. Even the snow bear that was guarding outside didn't notice it at the first moment. Roar. The snow bear roared. Sensing that someone had broken in, it immediately returned to the world inside the world of ice and went to the snow mountain where Yu Yuan's true body was sitting. Chapter 1350. Yu Yuan looked forward. 9 blazing fireballs, like 9 burning suns, surrounded a tall figure. The newcomer wore a long gray robe and had a head of soft silver hair. He was handsome and looked serious. It was the mountain master of Extreme Yang Mountain, Mo Baichuan, who created the 9 Lights Heaven Wheel. He was also one of Yu Yuan's few friends in his previous life. At this moment, the 9 Lights Heaven Wheel he was circulating was also given to him by Mo Baichuan. 300 years ago, he and Mo Baichuan were quite close. Otherwise, he wouldn't have refined pills for Mo Baichuan, and Mo Baichuan wouldn't have given him the 9 Lights Heaven Wheel. At that time, his fame was actually greater than Mo Baichuan's. When the two were familiar with each other, Mo Baichuan wasn't the mountain master of Extreme Yang Mountain yet, and the 9 Lights Heaven Wheel wasn't as brilliant as it was now. At the end of his life, he began to research poison pills and went to dangerous places like the Rainbow Cloud Miasma Sea. From time to time, he would create a new type of poison, so he had less contact with Mo Baichuan. because his temperament had changed greatly and he had done many wrong things, perhaps to avoid suspicion, or perhaps to go against Mo Baichuan's morals, the two gradually stopped contacting each other. I felt that someone was circulating the Nine Lights Heaven wheel at full strength. I guessed it was you, so I came to take a look. Mo Baichuan stood in the 9 fireballs. When he heard the roar of the snow bear and saw the giant bear, as strong as a mountain, return, he said, "Don't worry, I came alone. It's fine." Yu Yuan raised his head and smiled at the frigid snow bear. It thought that a battle would break out, and that Mo Baichuan had bad intentions. Hearing Yu Yuan say this, it couldn't help but look strangely at the 9 blazing fireballs beside Mo Baichuan. It could feel the terrifying flame energy from them. Its huge eyes suddenly looked at Yu Yuan's dantian and found that there were also 9 flames slowly rotating in a similar trajectory. They pulled out flaming clouds and helped Yu Yuan cleanse the filth, melting the remains of his body and sun spirit bit by bit. It was very smart and immediately realized that since Yu Yuan cultivated the same spirit art as Mo Baichuan, the two of them should have a very deep relationship. In addition, it did not feel any obvious hostility from Mo Baichuan. Thus, it suddenly calmed down and stood in midair like a mountain. However, its furry face was still filled with vigilance. To think that the legendary violent bear would have such a side to him. How surprising! Mo Baichuan was surprised. As the sect master of a mountain peak in the primal Yang sect, he had heard that the Azuras had a secret contract with an ancient, ferocious frigid snow bear. The strange beast that Howren called Violent Bear had lived for a very, very long time. It was so old that even in the era when the Shunhun sect and the Dragon clan roamed the galaxy, there were traces of it left behind. The vicious reputation of the Violent Bear was more or less recorded in the ancient records of many ancient sections. From what Mo Baichuan knew, this Violent Bear was extremely dangerous. It was extremely hostile to the humans and demons of Howren. Many of the Freedom Realm cultivators who had died under its claws were very famous. However, even more were the great demons of the Goblin Temple, who had been massacred by it on a large scale. It was just that it had not appeared for a long time, and Mo Baichuan was not very old, so he had not had much interaction with it in the starry sky. This was the first time he had encountered it. What surprised Mo Baichuan was that it was protecting Yu Yuan. Moreover, it was obediently listening to Yu Yuan. Old Bai, as soon as Yu Yuan spoke, Mo Baichuan's face suddenly trembled. "What? Has it been a long time since someone called you that?" Seeing his unnatural expression and the strange look in his eyes, Yu Yuan laughed and said, "I almost forgot that you are now the mountain master of Extreme Yang Mountain, the most promising expert in the entire primal Yang sect to reach the nascent soul stage. After Li Tianxin's death, if Zhu An hadn't interfered, you would have smoothly taken over his vacant seat." "What's the point of saying all this?" Mo Baichuan frowned. He found that Yu Yuan could actually multitask. He could operate the 9 Lights Heaven wheel while talking to him. More importantly, Yu Yuan's Yin spirit had left his body and traveled far away. Even he could not act as recklessly as Yu Yuan at such an important moment of refining his Yang spirit. "Old Bai, are you the only one who came to the Firefly Galaxy? Where are the other Freedom Realm cultivators of the Sword Sect, Xuantianzong, and Primal Yang Sect? What are your plans and objectives for coming here?" Knowing that Jun Chun had arrived, Yu Yuan, who had calmed down, asked unhurriedly with a calm expression. Mo Baichuan, who was called Old Bai repeatedly, was not used to it at first. Later, he helplessly admitted it. After the riot in the Jilin Galaxy ended, the various parties who received the news felt that there was no need to investigate in detail, so many people left. I was interested in the illusory galaxy, so I explored it. Later, I learned that the Sword Sect people were rushing to the Firefly Galaxy one after another, so I came to take a look. Then, I sensed that someone was operating the 9 Lights Heaven wheel. I guessed it was you, so I came to take a look. Mo Baichuan said indifferently. Then, without saying a word, he fixed his gaze on the 9 clusters of bright, fiery light in Yu Yuan's lower dantian. You didn't expect this, did you? Yu Yuan knew his temperament. He chuckled and said, You gave me this spirit art before. Was it because you knew I couldn't cultivate it that you were so generous? Mo Baichuan snorted, as if he didn't want to talk to him. Why didn't you come to the Medicine God sect to find me back then? Yu Yuan asked again. Mo Baichuan slightly raised his head and snorted again. You still have the face to ask me? What's wrong? You have fallen into the path of evil. How many people have died because of your poisons and poisonous pills? I didn't go to the Medicine God sect to kill you instead of eliminating evil. I was already thinking about our old friendship. Mo Baichuan's words were fierce, and he didn't give him face at all. You are a human again. Even if you work with the Shunhun sect, the things you have done are much better than what you did back then. His silky silver hair suddenly stood on end as he shouted. They became as sharp as silver needles. You are still the same. Yu Yuan felt a headache. Seeing his silver hair turn from soft to hard, he smiled bitterly and said, Okay, old Bai, don't get too excited. I won't blame you. Mo Baichuan took a breath of cold air and quickly calmed down. He looked at the frozen sea in the distance and said, Is there an entrance to the frigid abyss under the sea? Yu Yuan didn't lie to him. He nodded and said, Gu Xingkue used his sword not long ago and angered it. Pointing at the frigid snow bear, Yu Yuan said again, It secretly took care of the entrance to the frigid abyss here. It was injured, and in a rage, it temporarily blocked the entrance to the frigid abyss. You came here not only to see me, but also to open the entrance to the frigid abyss? I don't need to meddle in your business. Since you have become a member of the Shunhun sect, the Shunhun sect and the Tongtian Trading Company will ask you to do it if they know you are so close to the brutal bear. Obviously, Mo Baichuan didn't want to see him. With a straight face, he snorted and said, The Sword Sect, the Goblin Temple, and the Red Devil School have all thrown you an olive branch and tried to pull you into their ranks. You could have chosen any one of them, but you chose to go to the Shunhun sect. Do you really want to be enemies with me and Jining Shuang? Yu Yuan sighed and said, I can't help it. He wanted to say that since he had been one of the God Kings in his first life, many things had been predestined from the moment he had stepped into the forbidden land of the falling moons. Howren's 5 major forces were the culprits that had led to his death in his first life. In his second life, his pills had been tampered with. The way his senior martial brother Zhong Chichen had treated him and Chu Yao had cooperated with him was also because of the 5 major forces. Since things had come to this, he had no choice but to return to the Shunhun sect and take the dragon beheading platform back into his hands. Whoosh! Mo Baichuan suddenly took out a piece of translucent flame jade that contained a crimson glow and threw it at him from afar. The things inside will be of some help to you now. Also, I've made adjustments to the wonders of the 9 lights heavenly wheel in the past few hundred years and imprinted them in this jade. The flame jade hovered in front of Yu Yuan's chest, releasing a flame power that was even more intense than the sun core. Pretend that I never came. Pretend that we never met. Mo Baichuan glanced at the brutal bear, who was about to attack him, and suddenly flew towards the outside world. Along the way, before he could even break through the realm wall, he mysteriously disappeared. The frigid snow bear didn't attack. His eyes shone with a strange light, as if he also found it strange. Yu Yuan, on the other hand, looked at the flame jade and felt the power inside it, as well as the active flame in his lower dantian. After a moment of silence, he murmured, Nothing has changed. Old Bai has always been reliable at critical moments. P.S. Happy Children's Day, everyone. Chapter 1351. The snow bear looked around in midair, still searching for Mo Baichuan. Unfortunately, it found nothing. Its eyes were full of confusion, as if it couldn't figure out how this extraordinary primal Yang sect grand cultivator had avoided its senses and restrictions, and easily entered this world. It couldn't figure out how Mo Baichuan had left. Whoosh! The snow bear crossed the realm barrier and came to the cold sea of stars. Its huge eyes gazed deeply into the void. Countless fragments of light that were hard to be seen with the naked eye moved in the depths of its eyes, resonating with its bloodline. It could see where Junchun and the Death Crane were hiding, the dragon beheading platform, Zhou Yu Yumu Duyuan, and the sword light of Starfrost sword Jining Shuang, as well as Alonso's current movements. Most of the stars in the Firefly starfield had a secret connection with it. As long as it was in this starfield, it would be able to sense it, and Mo Baichuan had become an accident. It was very confused. On the peak of the snowy mountain, the moment Yu Yuan reached out to grab the flame jade, many sparks suddenly appeared in his mind. Like fireflies, they poured into his small world in his sea of consciousness, shining brightly. With unique imprints, the sparks quickly merged with his main soul and turned into deep memories. Therefore, he learned the changes of the Nine Lights heavenly wheel in an instant, and learned a new way to operate it, as well as the fighting skills to use it with this flamed spiritual art. Besides that, he also saw 3 drops of light blue blood inside the flame jade, which were burning with shocking flames. The 3 drops of light blue blood came from a high-level red flame beast. The stars where this beast had been would soon be scorched and burned because of its arrival. Mo Baichuan obtained the blood essence of a 9th-level red flame beast after it was killed. Yu Yuan's expression flickered slightly. Afterwards, he also saw that there was a fine river of flames inside the flame jade that had been refined by Nietian. In that stream of flames, there were even thinner lightning bolts, which seemed to be engraved with the wonders of the law of fire. A dark red animal bone was also burning, emanating a soul-stirring power. The blood, the river of flames, and the beast bones were all inside the flame jade. They should be Mo Baichuan's personal treasures that he had given away. All of the rare treasures had been refined by him with the 9 Lights heavenly wheel and contained his aura. Not long after holding onto the flame jade, Yu Yuan discovered that the flame jade had followed a unique aura to reach his Golden Hall microcosm without doing anything. Boom! In the yellow court microcosm, 3 drops of light blue blood transformed into 3 red flame beasts. The slender flame river widened, and the flame liquid started to boil. The unknown beast bone had turned into a dark red mountain of flames, and was also violently spewing streams of fire. The brand new method of operation of the 9 Lights heavenly wheel that he had just learned was activated by him, causing his yellow court meridian to become a world of blazing fire like a furnace. Because of this, the efficiency at which he could refine the impurities and impurities in his body was increased by more than 10 times. The yellow court meridian greedily began to seek power from the outside. It wanted to deprive him of all the flame power and solar fire that could be absorbed. Unfortunately, the world his true body was in was cruel and cold. There was no flame power or solar fire for him to absorb. A few pieces of fire-attributed spiritual jades, however, were reduced to ashes and stone powder within a short period of time. Soon, he realized that with Mo Baichuan's help, his yang spirit could quickly take shape. Outside, the dragon beheading platform and Zhou Yu arrived outside the icy world of the 3 great sword immortals of the sword sect, Damien, Shirala, and the 2 platinum Azuras. However, Alonso was not among them. Through the dragon beheading platform's vision, Yu Yuan saw that Alonso had suddenly turned away because he had heard the cry of the crane of death and sensed Jun Chen's appearance before he was about to land. Therefore, in the world below, there were 4 platinum Azuras fighting the 3 great sword immortals. Sword of Destruction, Du Yuan was seriously injured and could not form his Dharma idol. He was in the worst condition of the three. Jining Shuang was in a state of rapid recovery, and her combat strength was not at its peak. On the other hand, Yu Mu's sword of sky water was full of energy. He constantly weaved a sword net, sometimes helping Du Yuan, sometimes helping Jining Shuang. Even if you are worried about her, you should hold the line and try not to go down. Zhou Yu looked much more relaxed. He said to Yu Yuan's spirit in the dragon beheading platform, "You can rest assured that we will not attack the sword sect before we make these Azuras pay the price." Murderous intent was hidden in his eyes. If Shi Quan dies, the platinum Azuras will be buried with her. Our people can't die in vain. Yu Yuan nodded slightly. He noticed that because Alonso had not come, the three great sword immortals of the sword sect had joined forces to face the 4 platinum Azuras. Although the situation was difficult, they had at least survived. Also, Jining Shuang's aura was becoming more and more active, and the sword light was becoming more and more intense. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The dazzling sword light was like a mountain of light shooting straight into the sky, piercing through the realm barrier and into the stars. These were the sword light of the Sword of Starfrost. After the sword light shot into the sky, it was obvious that it was spontaneously gathering vast amounts of frost energy and sparse starlight. The sword light was absorbing the power of the Firefly star field to help her recover, help her open wounds, and quietly heal her internal organs. It was as if fighting for a long time was beneficial to her recovery. This alone made Yu Yuan not anxious, and he was willing to continue waiting. A while later, an inexplicable sense of coldness appeared in his spirit. He, who was hiding in the dragon beheading platform, seemed to be secretly watched by some terrifying existence. He carefully sensed that feeling. Not good. Inside the dragon beheading platform, he looked at the overly calm Zhou Yu and said softly, "The Chaos Kuan is in the Firefly star field. I don't know its exact location, but that guy couldn't help but sneak a peek at me." The Chaos Kuan. Zhou Yu shuddered and suddenly lost his calm. In the illusory alien battlefield, I used the dragon beheading platform to gather the demonic energy of the ancient demon formation of Heavenly Capital from a strange stone that he refined. When he wanted to come, he couldn't because of the seal of the Void Spirit. Yu Yuan explained and then said, "He should be here now. The Firefly star field is really chaotic." Zhou Yu cursed. After a pause, Zhou Yu's expression changed dramatically. He seemed to have thought of something and said hurriedly, "You must be careful. You are breaking through your true body. I heard from the president that the Chaos Kuan has no position and can cooperate with any party. Also, he has been wanting to possess you for a long time. He wants to erase your soul after your sun spirit is forged and walk in the world with your body." Mr. Mo, what do you think? In the unique small world created by imitating the Stardust Sea, the Chaos Kuan, who had turned into a skinny old man and given himself the human name Ming Kuan, was squatting on the beach by the sea, holding a huge fruit from an unknown world. He opened the fruit and put it in his mouth. While munching, he looked at Mo Baichuan with a grin. The world he had refined was only a strange stone the size of a palm. This strange stone was in the world of Yu Yuan and the frigid snow bear. It was an inconspicuous star that they had just passed. It was mixed in the countless broken stones on the star, and no unusual aura leaked out. Lin Zhuyun and the Corpse King were sitting on the island opposite him with gloomy faces. They looked listless, as if they had been taught a lesson. "You help me kill that wild bear, and I can help you clear the blocked entrance to the frigid abyss. It's reasonable," the Chaos Kuan said with a smile. The reason why Mo Baichuan had been able to appear in Yu Yuan's world within a split second and disappear right under Tyrannical Bear's nose was because of his help. After so many years of recovery, his strength was about to be recovered. "What are you going to do with Yu Yuan?" Mo Baichuan asked expressionlessly. "Yu Yuan. The Chaos Koan was stunned. He scratched his head with his juice-stained hand. Does he have anything to do with you, Mo Baichuan? You and I both represent the three great sects of the Tianyuan continent. And Yu Yuan, isn't he from the Shenhun sect? Whether he lives or dies, why do you care? Mo Baichuan said, we want him alive. You? Or you? The Chaos Koan confirmed. Mo Baichuan was silent. I see. The Chaos Koan nodded and waved his hand indifferently. If we can't reach an agreement, then let's not talk about it. Mr. Mo, take care of yourself. The current Firefly star field is more dangerous than you think. Take care of yourself. Oh. Mo Baichuan disappeared. Chapter 1352. Chaos Koan. After confirming that the ferocious giant beast of the starry sky had successfully arrived at the Firefly star zone, Yu Yuan felt a chill in the depths of his heart. He had long known that the Chaos Koan had been eyeing him when he was at the bottom of the starry sky sea. The Chaos Koan wanted to possess him. It wanted to wipe out his soul at some point in the future and replace it with its own soul. And that moment seemed to be the time for him to break through the sun spirit. It was now. The Chaos Koan, which was limited in the Chilean star zone and could not come in time, was quietly hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to take action. It might even know where his true body was. Wait a moment. Yu Yuan, who was in the dragon-slaying platform, told Zhou. He was thinking about the frigid snow bear. Then, Brutal Bear, who was on the other side of the Sea of Stars, suddenly sensed something. The dragon-slaying platform was also illuminated in his huge eyes. The Chaos Koan is in the Firefly star zone. It wants to possess me when I am refining the sun spirit. Do you have any good suggestions? Yu Yuan was in the world of the dragon-slaying platform. He felt that it should be able to hear him, because it was the actual ruler of the Firefly star zone. As expected, after Yu Yuan finished speaking, the Chaos Koan's aura suddenly changed. Together with it, the river of sword light that had been still before started to move slowly again. It pointed at the river of sword light with its huge hand, indicating that Yu Yuan and the dragon-slaying platform should go there together. I will talk to Junshin and ask the Chamber of Commerce to inform the Shenhun sect. Don't worry too much. We are very strong. It's just that we don't know the situation in the Firefly star zone. Maybe we can't arrange for strong masters to enter in time. Zhou was still talking. He was still trying to think of a way for the Chaos Koan to come over. Of course, he knew that Yu Yuan was very important. He did not want to give the Chaos Koan an opportunity at this special moment. Yu Yuan's Een divinity glanced down at the cold, aloof figure standing alone in the world of absolute frost. She looked at the cold sword lights that protruded out of the realm wall. Mr. Zhou, please take care of Jining Shuang for me. Yu Yuan suddenly made a serious request. Zhou was stunned. What do you want to do? There's something else. After saying this, a rainbow-colored light rippled from the edge of the dragon beheading platform. The multicolored light was like a series of pocket-sized space-time dragons that caused spatial ripples to form. Whoosh! An instant later, this long, white, lustrous divine stone appeared near the slowly moving river of sword light in the depths of the dense cold fog. As soon as the dragon beheading platform came in, wisps of cold energy automatically seeped into it. Within the cold energy, there was the unique aura of the frigid snow bear. With a thought, Yu Yuan released the seal, so the cold fog flowed in. Then, it spontaneously flew to the place where the frost dragon was buried and submerged into the ground. This seemed to be a gift from the violent bear. As the sole master of the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan, who had been on the dragon beheading platform, suddenly sensed that some of the incomplete laws of frost in the frost dragon's small world seemed to have been repaired because of this. Yu Yuan was shocked. It was only a level 9 mutated beast. Although its origin was mysterious and it had lived for a long time, it had not reached the peak of its bloodline. It was inferior to the level 10 frost dragon. A level 10 frost dragon was already a dragon god. Like the demon god of the Goblin Temple and the primordial spirit of the human race, it stood at the peak of Howren's power. At the peak of Howren's combat strength, it could be compared to the strongest intelligent beings in the Howren Star River. After the frost dragon died, the laws of the great Tao derived from the dragon's breath that scattered on the ground became incomplete because of countless battles and because the dragon beheading platform was split into 3. It could actually repair itself. "Where did you come from?" Yu Yuan muttered in the dragon beheading platform. Then, he saw a snowball stop where his Een spirit was. The snowball, like an eye without a pupil, hovered above the purple-gold dragon egg. It seemed to be looking at the exquisite and complicated dragon patterns on the dragon egg, as if it saw the young Titanspinosaurus sorting out the mysteries of its bloodline and feeling the divine abilities imprinted in its body. The snowball, which was only the size of a fist, flashed with icy light and trembled slightly. The frigid snow bear, which was as sturdy as a mountain and guarding Yu Yuan's true body on the surface of the strange cold star, was also trembling violently. As it trembled, millions of bloodline crystal chains suddenly shone brightly in its heart. It was as if new bloodline crystal chains were madly growing and arranging, shining with new mysteries. You learn something just by looking at this dragon egg? Looking deeply at the snowball and feeling its aura, Yu Yuan knew that the snowball had formed because he had opened the dragon beheading platform for it. The snowball was like its eye. It observed the Titanspinosaurus's dragon egg, saw the young beast, and comprehended some wondrous divine abilities from the mysterious dragon patterns, and activated new bloodline crystal chains. It had transformed because of this. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! Thick cold mist suddenly poured into the dragon beheading platform and the burial ground of the frost dragon, pouring some kind of supernatural power into this world. As the master of the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan's Een soul could go and stop it, but he did nothing. The small snowball spun gently, sprinkling icy snowflakes. When the snowflakes fell to the ground, they instantly merged into the world of the dragon beheading platform. When the snowflakes fell from the snowball, it finally turned into a drop of silver-white blood. It was a drop of its blood essence. The silver-white blood absorbed the supernatural power in the world of the dragon beheading platform. In the depths of the blood, invisible blood threads that were thousands of times thinner than hair suddenly formed. A new kind of life force spread out from the drop of silver-white blood. For some reason, Yu Yuan felt that the drop of silver-white blood would give birth to a new life, the ancestor of a new intelligent life. After what seemed like an instant, and what seemed like an eternity, the drop of silver-white blood suddenly disappeared. Through the dragon beheading platform's vision, Yu Yuan saw the frigid snow bear's true body looking at the dragon beheading platform with a grateful gaze, and then looking down at the world of absolute frost below. It was grateful to him. As for the drop of silver-white blood, it seemed to have gone from the inside of the dragon beheading platform to the crescent moon in the Firefly Star Zone. There was no sun in the Firefly Star Zone, only a crescent moon that eternally emitted cold moonlight. The silver-white blood was refined by the frigid snow bear. After being nurtured in the dragon beheading platform for a while, it was thrown to the crescent moon, as if it wanted to continue brewing. It was brewing a unique and different species that was formed because of it. It was like how the immortal bird created the winged clan, the Ruashin divine tree created the dark spirit clan, the abyssal lizard created the deep-sea giant winged lizard, and the silver scale clan. You want to create your own species. Will it work? Yu Yuan was shocked beyond words. Then, he discovered that part of the cold energy that had entered the dragon beheading platform quietly left. As soon as it left, it merged into the crescent moon. Roar! It suddenly roared fiercely from the other side of the starry sky. The roar was filled with warning and anger, as if it was roaring at all intruders. Yu Yuan deeply sensed its enthusiasm and excitement. She knew that it would do everything it could for the birth of its species and the creation of intelligent creatures that only belonged to it. It would kill anyone who dared to destroy it or stop it. If the Azura race didn't cooperate, it would also kill them. The dragon beheading platform played a role in catalyzing it. A part of the Great Tao's laws was imprinted on that drop of silver-white blood. It wasn't just ice. Other bloodline systems also merged with that drop of blood from the dragon beheading platform. If there really is a new life, I will have a share of the credit for that life. Yu Yuan felt something in his heart. Whoosh! In the next moment, the dragon beheading platform passed through the thick cold mist and arrived at the river of sword light closest to it. In the depths of the river of sword light, there was an extremely obvious falling moon, sword intent. This meant that the river of sword light was formed by the falling moon slash of the 9 slashes to the sky. Falling moon slash. Yu Yuan's Yin spirit gathered wisps of cold energy in this world and condensed them into an ice crystal sword. He casually performed sword techniques and tried to communicate with the river of sword light. Then, suddenly, more than a dozen long rivers of sword lights responded strongly. More than a dozen long rivers of sword gleams bloomed with divine brilliance that no one dared to look directly at. Unusual divine power was activated, and countless tiny sword gleams became active within. In an instant, all the mighty figures that had sneaked into the Firefly Star Zone sensed it. Many people looked at the river of sword light with astonishment, and saw a shocking scene. Almost at the same time, the world of absolute frost where Yu Yuan's true body was located also underwent a shocking change. Chapter 1353. Jining Shuang's cold eyes suddenly shone with the light of astonishment. After pushing Shirala back with her sword, she looked up into the sky. She saw that the rivers of sword light Nye Qintian had left behind seemed to have suddenly turned from dead objects into living creatures. She knew very well that each river of sword light was dozens of times wider than the real rivers and lakes in Hauran. Moreover, they spread out for thousands of miles, gathering amazing arcana. The supernatural abilities were wrapped in sword light, and after hundreds or thousands of years, they evolved into rivers of sword light. In the depths of the rivers of sword light, the core was passed down from the sword sect. There were many exquisite sword incantations and mysterious sword intent. However, the original owners of those sword light and sword intent had long disappeared in history. If there were no corresponding successors who could stimulate them with compatible sword intent, the power in the rivers of sword light and the terrifying sword energy would be difficult to display. She had spent such a long time comprehending only one river of sword light, which was directly connected to the sword of star frost. Who could summon more than a dozen rivers of sword light in such a short time? Who could make them shine so brightly? The first thing that came to her mind was the frigid snow bear. She thought that it was the snow bear showing its power again. However, she soon noticed that above the rivers of sword light, in the depths of the thick cold fog, there was a dragon-slaying platform that was gradually growing larger. Jining Shuang's beautiful little face suddenly glowed with the same brilliance as the rivers of sword light. On the other side, a towering Dharma idol that was thousands of meters tall and bathed in dazzling starlight flew out of an ordinary icy star. Nebulas flowed in many acupoints of this Dharma idol, as if numerous star cores had been refined and merged into his limbs and bones. Behind his Dharma idol, a huge white crane was staring at Alonso with eyes full of death. The mysterious Jun Chen, the first guest elder of the Tongtian Trading Company, held a bamboo flute and casually waved it, causing endless starlight to fall. It fell on the murderous Shura commander-in-chief, who was holding a silver spear. And Alonso's real opponent was neither Jun Chen nor the Crane of Death. Standing on the blood spirit altar, Ghost King Tian Tsang revealed his true form. With a blue face and fangs, he used the turbid devil fetus to wear down the silver spear's sharpness. Inside the turbid devil fetus, the golden holy light and the silver lightning were greatly weakened. Tian Tsang was sometimes in an illusory form, and sometimes he had a strong physique, which prevented Alonso from getting close to him. In the meantime, Jun Chun and the Death Crane were also secretly working to prevent the Ashura chief commander from ending the battle in a short time. Alonso coldly said, "Yu Qian, I feel sorry for you." Tian Tsang turned a deaf ear. As the battle raged on, Alonso, Tian Tsang, Jun Chun, and Bai He sensed something almost at the same time. They all looked in the direction of the river of sword light. "Yu Yuan." Tian Tsang grinned. "Yu Yuan. Violent bear." Inside the inconspicuous stone, the primal Chaos Kuan, who had just seen Mo Baichuan off, also looked out and sensed with the star behemoth's secret magic. His face was grim, and his eyes gradually turned dark red, filled with brutality. Rumble! The core of the frigid star he was hiding on shook violently, and then an unimaginably vast power instantly enveloped the entire world. In just a few seconds, all the Ashuras, birds, insects, and spirit beasts in this part of the world were killed. The small stone pierced through the star and flew away in a flash. Rurar! The frigid snow bear, who was standing on the surface of the star where Yu Yuan's true form was also roaring violently, and immediately learned the primal Chaos Kuan's hiding place. It looked at the stone that had flown out from a dead star that had been destroyed. Its gaze pierced through all the miasma and saw the primal Chaos Kuan, as well as the wondrous world that was a replica of the Stardust Sea. It also saw Lin Zhuyun and the submissive Een Corpse King. "Hee, how many years has it been since we last met?" From the world inside the wondrous stone, the primal Chaos Kuan waved at it, as if it were an old acquaintance. "You always make things difficult for me, and you always ruin my plans. Why?" As these words left his mouth, he didn't show his true form. Instead, he appeared outside the wondrous stone in his human form. The skinny old man held the wondrous stone with many totem poles on it in one hand. With a cold face, he walked easily in the void, thousands of miles away in a flash. He was getting closer and closer to the star that was slowly moving towards the river of sword light. He didn't continue to cover his tracks or hide anymore. That was because he also keenly sensed that Yu Yuan's yang spirit body was about to be fully formed. He had waited for so long for this moment. How could he let Yu Yuan get what he wanted? Swish! Swish! 9 streaks of sword light shot out of the river of sword light in the distance, like rainbows piercing through the sun. The 9 streaks of sword light were all crimson, and contained the endless sword intent of the falling moon. 9 slashes to the sky, falling moon slash. Du Yuan, who was wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, exclaimed as he looked at the streaks of sword light flashing across the starry sky. Yu Mu and Jining Shuang both put some distance between them and the platinum Azura, and paid attention to the streaks of sword light. Boom! The white dragon beheading platform suddenly enlarged thousands of times, like a silver sun hanging in the sky. Yu Yuan's Een spirit inside it became even larger than Jun Chen's Dharma idol. Every powerful expert who had entered the radiant star domain, whether openly or secretly, was attracted by it. "What's that?" Yu Yuan. The Death Crane and Jun Chen asked and answered. Looking at the enormous Yu Yuan's Een spirit, the man and the demon were both a bit dazed and didn't know what to do. Across the starry sky, they found that the dragon beheading platform, which Yu Yuan had taken to outer space, was emitting divine power. They saw that Yu Yuan's Een spirit seemed to be growing crazily. They also saw that Yu Yuan was wielding his sword with his Een spirit. Then, the falling moon slash was formed. 9 streaks of crimson sword light flew out of the river of sword light and slashed at the Chaos Kuan as if they had broken through time and space. As the first beam of crimson sword light approached, the ferocious star behemoth took its time to revert to its original form. A crimson sun and a bright moon that looked like white jade appeared in the Firefly space zone in the blink of an eye. They were the Chaos Kuan's demonic eyes. He had refined a real sun, a cold moon, and fused it into his eye sockets to form it. Swish! Fins that looked like sharp swords grew out of the Chaos Kuan's back and pierced the first streak of crimson sword light into pieces. The fins alone were hundreds of thousands of meters tall, which was comparable to Jun Chen's Dharma idol. The Chaos Kuan slowly stretched its body, and it was still growing rapidly. An icy star, under its primitive beast body, looked like a watermelon. The fins under its belly were like a row of saw teeth. They slashed across the star and tore another world apart. Crack! The second and the third streak of crimson sword light slashed at the scales on its back. The sputtering rain of light and billions of sword light sprinkled down from both sides of its back. They sprinkled into the dark, cold, starry sky. One of his eyes was crimson and the other was white. They were like the real sun and the moon, staring at the river of sword light, Brutal Bear, and Yu Yuan's real body. Brutal Bear, who was 2,000 meters tall, was not at the same level as him at this moment. Brutal Bear was like a toddler learning to walk. It couldn't even touch the knees of an ancient giant. Star Behemoth! The Chaos Kuan! Terrified screams came from many places in the starry river. Some Asuras who were strong enough to see him, the guests from Howran, and the grand cultivators of the Tongtian Trading Company and the Shenhun sect were all shocked. The primal Chaos Kuan was actually in his original form. His behemoth form, which was larger than a realm, only existed in an unreal dream. In this vast starry river, there were very few people who were lucky enough to see a star behemoth in its primitive form. A few more streaks of sword light slashed down, but the falling moon slash, which was powerful enough to severely injure a Freedom Realm cultivator, only left a few marks on the Chaos Kuan's body. Yu Yuan, how can you hurt me without the real heaven-toppling sword? As soon as the Chaos Kuan opened its mouth, the entire world rumbled and resounded with its voice. No matter where they were in the sky, on the ground, or in the deep sea, all of the living beings in the domain of Firefly could hear its voice. It was speaking in the language of the Howran humans, but all of them could understand it. It was like the secret words of a god that all living beings could hear and understand. He's too strong. Chapter 1354. In its primitive form, the eyes of the primal Chaos Kuan were like the sun and the moon. Even the stars below it seemed insignificant. As it wandered in the void, it inhaled the tainted and chaotic power of the starry river, turning an area of the starry river into an energy vacuum that was similar to the void in the domain of dark forest. Those who could see him and feel his power were all deeply shaken to the core. Everyone would think that the original overlords like it were so powerful that they shouldn't continue to exist. After all, their existence was simply destructive and subversive to the order of the world and the balance of all living beings. They were the synonym for disaster. The primal Chaos Kuan. Alonso, who was holding a silver spear and walking in the depths of the turbid demon fetus, exclaimed for the first time. As the commander-in-chief of the Asuras, he had been strategizing in secret. He wasn't surprised by the arrival of the sword immortals of the sword sect, Junchen, the Bird of Death, and Tian Song. He wasn't afraid of them either. However, the primal Chaos Kuan had suddenly appeared in its primitive form and destroyed 2 frigid stars in the domain of Firefly in a very short time. This had truly shocked him. Yu Qian. He, who had refused to call Tian Song by his human name in Howran, thrust his spear at the base of the blood spirit altar. Dozens of silver lightning bolts exploded the tainted power of the turbid demon fetus, accompanied by earth-shattering rumbles. Alonso's golden eyes met Jun Chen's Dharma idol in midair. Golden flames instantly burned in the depths of his eyes. The golden flame seemed to be contagious, as they engulfed the sea of stars in Jun Chen's Dharma idol's acupoints. Then, he pointed at the spot between his eyebrows. Light that was branded with the laws of his bloodline ignored the taint of the turbid demon fetus and was sent into the depths of the bird of death's soul. Crack! When a crisp sound came from the base of the blood spirit altar, Alonso moved with his spear and broke free of the blue devil's tears restrictions. Lola! Alonso let out a low growl. In the blink of an eye, Lola, the other Platinum Azura, and the ancient starships were enveloped by a realm barrier, and time travel was completed. 7 or 8 ancient starships and 2 Platinum Azuras instantly appeared behind the Chaos Kuan. Cannon fire poured out of the ancient starships like shooting stars. The tail of the Chaos Kuan was hit by hundreds of meteor attacks. Lola and the Platinum Azura were also charging towards the star behemoth with their quasi-saint weapons. Hey! The primal Chaos Kuan, which looked like a giant fish, grinned viciously as a crimson eyeball that was as blazing as the sun suddenly left its eye socket and started rampaging among the ancient starships. Boom! 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 7 or 8 ancient starships were smashed to pieces by his single eyeball. The weaker Azuras were only at rank 7 or 8. Regardless of whether they were born in the Dark Realm or in the outside world, they all exploded into a rain of blood in the blink of an eye. Before they even landed, the rain of blood evaporated into blood mist, their souls and blood completely dissipating. In the blink of an eye, the crimson sun, which looked like a complete realm, morphed into a skinny old man bathed in blood. The old man's body was hundreds of times larger than Jun Chen's and tyrannical bears. His crimson hands were flowing with divine sunfire. As they spun in the air like a millstone, a strange vortex of refined sunfire instantly formed. Lola and the Platinum Azura didn't even have time to react before they found themselves in the whirlpool. Compared to him, Lola and the Platinum Azura, who were as insignificant as flies, looked up at him and met his blood-red eyes. Immediately afterwards, they felt dizzy and lost consciousness. Their Azura bloodlines were suppressed, and their hearts stopped beating. Boom! Boom! Lola and the Platinum Azura didn't last long before their blood, bones, and souls exploded into specks of light. The old man, who looked somewhat similar to the primal Chaos Kuan, licked the corner of his mouth with satisfaction and sucked in a cruel breath. He sucked in the blood and souls of the 2 Platinum Azuras in one gulp. However, he didn't seem to have had enough. Primal Chaos Kuan! Alonso roared. Whoosh! The crimson old man shrank back into the sun and merged back into the primal Chaos Kuan's eye socket, becoming one of its eyes. Roar! Tyrannical bear, who was guarding Yu Yuan's true body, roared madly as sword intent filled its body. One after another, dozens of sword lights flew out of the wide river of sword lights. Those sword lights were what it had used to attack Du Yuan, destroying his Dharma idol and preventing him from continuing to refine it. The dozens of sword lights were even sharper than before. They contained the changes of the 4 seasons, the passage of time, the cycle of reincarnation, and the revival of all things. Du Yuan, Jining Shuang, and Yu Mu had already left the icy world below and returned to the stars. They watched as the sword lights flew away from the river of sword lights and passed over their heads. They felt the sword intent within, and their expressions became complicated. Those were the remnants of the sword sect's predecessors. Nie Qingtian had gathered them. It was as if they could see the peerless sword immortals who were willing to sacrifice themselves to illuminate the sword sect. They were working hard to expand Haosong's territory, so that Haosong could have another supreme seat. They saw the deaths of many great sword immortals and Nie Qingtian's painstaking search. Damien, Shirala, and the 2 Platinum Azuras who had attacked them previously also stepped out of the sky and looked into the distance with them. The battle between the 2 sides temporarily stopped due to the appearance of the Primal Chaos Kuan and Alonso's orders. Primal Chaos Kuan! The 4 platinum Azuras clenched their teeth, their hearts burning with anger. Lola was dead. Their comrade was also dead. There were also many subordinates who were loyal to them. Many of them were even their descendants. They had all died in an instant. The primal chaos Kuan released an eye that turned into a skinny old man and killed them all. The other 2 realms in the Firefly domain had also exploded. Millions of Azura clansmen had died without knowing anything. They didn't even feel any pain. This brutal, bloodthirsty star behemoth had become a nightmare in everyone's hearts. The primal chaos Kuan's hatred was full in an instant. However, there was nothing they could do about it. Its other eye, which had refined the absolute frost moon, shone with cold light. The fins on its back seemed to be covered in a thick layer of ice armor. From afar, it seemed to be indestructible, colder and harder than the hardest iron. Dozens of sword lights turned into a dazzling meteor shower, dragging rainbows and engraved with the wonders of the universe. Crack, crack, crack. Crack, crack, crack. The thick ice on his fins shattered piece by piece. However, when he shook his beast body, even when thousands of pieces of ice fell off, not a single one of his fins broke. One of its eyes was crimson red, and the other was silver. It looked at Violent Bear with a cold gaze and said, "Unfortunately, you're not a true giant star beast born in the beginning. Also, you're not a descendant of a giant star beast, so your bloodline grade has never been broken." As it spoke, the primal chaos Kuan approached Violent Bear and the star. If you were born in Hauran and appeared as an ancient demon, you would have become a demon god a long time ago. Hauran is too unique. It's a unique world of its own that can help you break the shackles of your bloodline. But you weren't born in Hauran. No matter how intelligent you are, you can't transform in essence. Yu Yuan's enormous Een spirit was paying close attention to the primal chaos Kuan in the depths of the dragon-slaying platform. Thousands of soul strands left the dragon-slaying platform and immersed themselves in the river of sword light, feeling the sword intent inside, and the sword light formed by the 9 slashes to the sky. He knew that the 9 slashes to the sky he had comprehended allowed him to use the sword light inside. If he used it to kill Shirala, Damien, or even Yumu and Duyuan, he might have succeeded. He could see the results immediately. However, the primal chaos Kuan was clearly much stronger after returning to the Star River. Its body was dozens of times larger than before. Such a primal chaos Kuan was equal to Hauran's supreme nascent spirit. It was at the same level as the white heavenly tiger and the Qilin, or slightly stronger. Compared to the Empress, the Void Spirit, and the fallen divine tree in the domain of Dark Forest, it was also slightly stronger. Because Chen Qinghuang hadn't recovered to his peak, the Void Spirit's true form hadn't merged with his soul, and the fallen divine tree had just grown. Without the Sword of Atlas in hand, with his current realm and strength, even if he activated the Sword Light in the River of Sword Light, it seemed that he couldn't do anything to it. And what he wanted was his own Yang spirit body. Chapter 1355. The Primal Chaos Kuan, which was much larger than a real heaven and earth, did whatever it wanted in the domain of Firefly. All of the guests' attention was attracted by it, and the battle stopped. This was the first time the Primal Chaos Kuan, which had broken free from Hauran's seal and rushed into the Starry River, had bared its sharp fangs and displayed its brutal and bloodthirsty side to its heart's content. Even though it had stayed in the Starry River outside the Thousand-Bird Realm, it hadn't recovered its strength, and Grek and Sabonis had been there, and it had been wary of the Shenhun sect. Therefore, it had restrained itself. At that time, it had only taken the opportunity to slaughter many elites of various races in the Starry River outside. But now, it had appeared in its primitive form and easily destroyed 2 other frigid realms, as well as numerous ancient starships and platinum Azuras. Right now, he was truly like a fish that had returned to water. Inside the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan's nether deity sensed the sword light left by Nie Qingtian in the depths of the river of sword light, and his expression grew grim. He could summon the sword light formed by the 9 slashes that up the heavens had unleashed, but since the real heaven-toppling sword and sword soul weren't here, and he wasn't wielding the sword with his true form, he couldn't display the divine might of Nie Qingtian's sword and injure the primal chaos Kuan at all. He racked his brain for a way to stop this ferocious primal chaos Kuan from wreaking havoc. He wanted the primal chaos Kuan to be unable to enter the frigid heaven and earth, so that it could catch its breath the moment its young soul was formed. Primal chaos Kuan. Holding his silver spear, Alonso gathered blood power and charged towards Junchen, Tiansong, and the death crane like a dazzling bolt of snow-white lightning that pierced through time and space. The snow-white lightning was so dazzling that it seemed to be made of thousands of glittering bloodline crystal chains. The profound aura of magical laws and the rumbling of the great Tao could be vaguely heard from it. Alonso, you're still too young. The Chaos Kuan in the shape of a giant fish laughed strangely and suddenly opened its mouth to spit out an icy blue river. Countless tiny rocks flew out from one of the rocks, which then turned into enormous totem poles of the demon folk. In the blink of an eye, the 36 totem poles were arranged into an array and suddenly produced a suction force. Alonso's silver battle spear, the snow-white lightning that rumbled with the great Tao, and himself were enveloped by the heavenly capital ancient demon formation before they could even approach the Chaos Kuan. The totem poles that pierced through the void only had a portion of the remaining demonic energy left. Originally, they couldn't release too much power. However, the person controlling the heavenly capital ancient demon formation was not Lin Zhuyun, but him, the Chaos Kuan. The icy blue river suddenly transformed into the bizarre Stardust Sea area. All the seawater in the Stardust Sea region seemed to be the rich blood energy of the Chaos Kuan. The 36 totem poles were located in the Stardust Sea region, as if they were gathering power from the deep sea and accumulating supernatural abilities. A deep, vast, and mysterious aura permeated the capital of heaven ancient demon formation, temporarily trapping Alonso. If Sabonis hadn't been severely injured in the thousand-bird realm, I wouldn't have dared to act so recklessly in the Firefly Star Zone. The Chaos Kuan's voice came from his crimson and silver-white eyes. Everyone could hear it. Far away in another icy world, Shirala, who was communicating with the Dark Realm through the Dark Realm Cold Well, suddenly had a splitting headache while he was speaking. Shiala's soul was invaded by the Chaos Kuan's evil power, and her thoughts became chaotic. The Platinum Azura's eyes quickly turned crimson and silver-white, as if she had turned into a believer of the Chaos Kuan. Her worship and firm belief in the Shura of Gojoseon, after being affected by the Chaos Kuan, caused her secret connection with the Dark Realm Cold Well to be broken. Sabonis, this Shura of Gojoseon, has lived long enough and is strong enough. If his battle prowess was at its peak, I wouldn't want to provoke him and fight him to the death. What a pity! The Chaos Kuan looked at the Azura race commander sealed by the heavenly capital ancient demon formation. Unfortunately, he needs time to recover. It's useless for him to come. You, on the other hand, have advanced to the 10th rank for too short a time. Your bloodline hasn't been refined repeatedly for thousands of years. It's impossible for me to fear you. Whoosh! The Chaos Kuan's figure paused, and in the hazy starlight and lightning, transformed into the human form of a skinny old man. However, he was tens of thousands of meters tall. It was as if a human freedom realm cultivator had refined his Dharma idol. There seemed to be water dragons moving in his sleeve. You boy, I've raised you for so long just for this day. The Chaos Kuan grinned sinisterly. If you don't want to die, don't come over. Otherwise, whoever ruins my plans will die. He glared at Zhou Yu, Junchen, and Ghost King Tiansong. Then, he finally arrived in front of the frigid realm Snow Bear. He was much taller than the Snow Bear. At this time, he looked down at the snow bear. You can't stop what I want. Your persistence is meaningless. He tore at it with his large hands. Rip! Below the snow bear, the star realm wall that hid the frigid abyss was torn apart and turned into silver light curtains. Inside, Yu Yuan, who was sitting on top of a snowy mountain, appeared clearly. Many experts who were close to him could see Yu Yuan. They saw that Yu Yuan was still focused on refining his yang spirit in a blazing sea of fire. Rip! Rip! Streaks of sword light were stimulated by the snow bear and driven by Yu Yuan's yin spirit. They flew out of the river of sword light and slashed at the Chaos Kun. In his human form, he waved his hand indifferently. Streaks of sword light turned into a rainstorm and fell on the cold, starry river around him. Not a single one of them could hurt him. Roar! In the records of the Hauran human race, the snow bear, known as the violent bear, beat its chest and roared. It fearlessly faced the Chaos Kun in the form of a skinny old man. Boom! Boom! As soon as it moved, the entire domain of fireflies, the realms and the earth seemed to respond to it, and began to shake violently. Its body expanded more than 10 times in an instant, and its blood power and tremendous strength, which were about to explode, suddenly burst out. It hugged the Chaos Kun and bit at it with its ghastly bare teeth. Countless icy lights, thorns, and frost smashed at the Chaos Kun in its huge bare paws. In an instant, the Chaos Kun assumed its primitive giant fish form and bit at it. The space where the two of them were in sank. Thousands of rays of light burst out. Magnificent grand cultivators that could destroy the world sputtered, and some of the Shuras that tried to get close exploded and died. The collision of Tao laws and bloodlines, the impact that could smash worlds, the Chaos Kun's sharp fins, and the violent bear's brute strength constantly showed up. Boom! At the edge of the domain of fireflies, the realms without Shuras began to explode one by one, turning into countless pieces of rubble. The destruction of a part of the world seemed to be because the power, superpowers, and hidden laws of the entire world were absorbed by it and used to deal with the terrifying Chaos Kun. It engulfed the entire domain of fireflies and fought the Chaos Kun. First, the realms without Shuras and beasts were destroyed because of its crazy battle. Then, the realms without Shuras and beasts were destroyed one by one. Because of its fierce battle with the Chaos Kun, the domain of fireflies was moving closer to the Yulin domain of the past. Many stars and countless realms were shattered and exploded one by one. The final result was that there were no more complete realms in this vast domain. All the intelligent creatures that had once lived here would die because of this battle. Junchen, we have to save Yu Yuan. Standing on the azure crystal altar, Tian Song the Ghost King looked at the realms that had lost the protection of the realm barrier and were filled with foreign superpowers with a heavy look in his eyes. The first guest elder of the Tongtian Trading Company and the Crane of Death didn't know the true background of Yu Yuan. So, they seemed hesitant just now. At this moment, hearing Tian Song's words so clearly, Junchen nodded slightly and said, "I'll do my best. I'll take you there." Zhou Yu was waiting for him to nod and say that, so he immediately planned to open the space tunnel. Tian Song suddenly exclaimed. After losing the realm barrier, the cold star that everyone had been staring at suddenly shone with silver light that they couldn't look at. Then, time and space twisted violently, and the star that was hidden in the frigid abyss reappeared on the other side. It reappeared in the starry sky where the dragon beheading platform and the rivers of sword light were. Chapter 1356. How miraculous was it for a small world to travel from one side of the galaxy to the other in an instant. Countless gazes moved away from the fierce battle between the Chaos Kun and the Bao Xiong. Instead, they looked at the star that sat above the river of sword light. In the dark sky, this star was shaped like a goose egg. It was icy blue and looked extraordinary. Without the realm barrier blocking their view, even the snowy peaks and the deep sea looked so clear. It was the star that attracted everyone's attention. At the same time, Yu Yuan's silhouette and the dragon beheading platform entered the crowd's eyes. Below the star, the river of sword light was wide and long. Some were clearly separated and some were intertwined. The sword light flowed like rainbows and revealed many profound sword intents. The star landed on the river of sword light. It looked so harmonious and natural. It was as if it had been on the river of sword light for tens of thousands of years. It should be there. However, when they saw such a star instantly traversing the void and appearing above the river of sword light, everyone was shocked. What kind of power could allow one world to reach the other side of the starry sky? Great doubts filled everyone's minds. Boom! Inside the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan's spirit suddenly shook. He looked at the icy blue star that had moved to this place and his true body sitting on top of the snowy mountain. The dragon beheading platform suddenly fell. The spirit also flew out and entered the small world in his sea of consciousness. The enormous dragon beheading platform was still floating above his true body. It gave off a hazy white divine light that faintly covered his body that was in the midst of a transformation. A small world moved in an instant. Since he was multitasking, the first thing he thought of was the floating life realm. According to the 7 loathed alien demons, the floating life realm seemed to have first appeared in the Annihilation starfield. Then, it suddenly entered the Drag Illusion starfield, the territory of the star race. Not long ago, after the heaven-piercing sword returned, the floating life realm disappeared again when the Azura race and the star race wanted to investigate. This time, the absolute frost star in front of him had also undergone an instant transfer. However, it was only in the Firefly starfield. Compared to the floating life realm, going from the Annihilation starfield to the Drag Illusion starfield was still a bit lacking. However, it still completed the transfer in an instant. Yu Yuan couldn't help but wonder where the power that caused the Absolute Frost starfield to move came from. It's not the dragon beheading platform. The dragon beheading platform didn't use its power at all. He first thought that it was the dragon beheading platform where his spirit was, because his spirit was inside the dragon beheading platform. He didn't sense the dragon breath of the space dragon. Other than the dragon beheading platform, what other power could create such a spectacle? The dragon subduing platform above his head illuminated the entire world. The nearby starry heavens secretly observed everything. Unfortunately, they did not discover or smell anything strange. Strange. He shook his head lightly. His main soul was still operating the 9 lights heavenly wheel. He saw a figure with translucent skin and numerous bloodline crystal chains gradually sit up in his flesh aura heaven and earth, which seemed to be floating in midair. Just like his true body. At first glance, the body seemed to be carved out of a perfect piece of red jade. Clusters of red light could be seen in its head, which was the manifestation of soul power. There were no internal organs in the body, but sparkling, translucent red bones that shone with mysterious light. Numerous bloodline crystal chains intertwined with each other and ran through his entire body. Each bloodline crystal chain was branded with many bloodline divine abilities and secret arts of varying strengths. What flowed in the depths of his bloodline was pure blood power, which was rich in life aura. Many bloodline crystal chains extended to his brain and took root in clusters of soul power that looked like red light. It seemed that they could supply soul power to the red light in an instant. They could also be stimulated by the strange soul power in the red light, which could combine soul power and blood power to form different bloodline magics. The new yang spirit body sat upright in the air of his small world in the sea of consciousness, slowly rotating. Numerous fragmented, blackened bloodline crystal chains that had been discarded fell from the sun spirit's metamorphosis. Both the crystals and bloodline crystal chains that had been eliminated instantly fell into his golden hall small world. Then, they were immediately engulfed by a sea of blazing flames, where they underwent the final refinement and cleansing. It's like a second heart that's stronger and more powerful, and the source of endless blood power. Feeling the majestic blood energy coming from the body of the Yang spirit, Yu Yuan found that before the Yang spirit left his body and was still in his small world of qi and blood, the Yang spirit seemed to have become his second heart. The blood power that surged from it and the endless blood power it contained surprised him. He exclaimed in a low voice as he looked down at the scabbard of the divine sword on his knees. A wisp of sword intent that seemed to have been hidden very deeply came from the deep sea in front of the snowy mountain peak, which had been frozen by ice. The deep sea that was covered in ice was the one where the frigid snow bear had repeatedly fallen into. The mouth of the frigid abyss was also at the bottom of the deep sea. It was connected to the frigid abyss of the 9 serenities in Howran, and delivered the cold power of the domain of Firefly to Howran all year round. Before it was blocked, the sword spirit of Gu Shinkue, the sword of earth, seemed to be guarding it forever. Could it be that Gu Shinkue and the head of the sword sect have sensed that something is wrong with the domain of Firefly and are going to send their swords here again? The mouth of the frigid abyss is already blocked. Are they going to break it open by force? If they do, the mouth of the frigid abyss may explode and be completely destroyed. With a grim expression, Yu Yuan sensed that something was wrong, and examined the situation carefully. After a while, his expression became very interesting. He soon realized that Gu Shinkue and the head of the sword sect weren't trying to break open the mouth of the frigid abyss with their nascent divinity power, but the light of excitement suddenly appeared in his eyes. Crunch! The sharp fins on the back of the primal chaos Kuan, which was in the form of a giant fish, cut open the fierce bear's chest and broke many of its silver bones, causing its blood to spill out into the starry river. The fierce bear's painful screams were tragic and stirring as it tried to wrap its giant arms around the primal chaos Kuan. The primal chaos Kuan spun rapidly. The fins under its abdomen and the fins on its tail were like thousands of sharp blades that formed rows of jagged teeth, leaving more bloody wounds on the fierce bear's body. The fierce bear's blood sputtered in all directions like a torrential rain. It was howling and roaring, but it couldn't stop the primal chaos Kuan from breaking free. Even though more stars exploded and turned into ashes and broken stones because of its obstruction, it couldn't stop the primal chaos Kuan anymore. Woo! Woo! It howled in grief and indignation, as if it were sending a message to Alonso and someone else. Protect the crescent moon in the domain of Firefly. Yu Yuan, who was far away on the river of sword light, heard its howls and immediately knew what it was asking and what it wanted. It hoped that the drop of blood essence that fell into the crescent moon would be able to give birth to a new creature. It seemed to be prepared to die. It wanted to use its own death to seek a new path for the race that had yet to be born. Primal Chaos Kuan. Junchen from the Chamber of Commerce, Tiantsang, who had sworn allegiance to Taisher, and the Death Crane appeared in front of the Primal Chaos Kuan at the same time. Do you want to die too? The primal chaos Kuan shook its body and morphed into a skinny old man that was thousands of meters tall. In this form, it seemed to be more agile. It looked at Junchen first. Hundreds of millions of wisps of divine flame and cold moonlight suddenly shot out of its crimson eyes and rushed into Junchen's Dharma idol acupoints, where numerous rivers of stars were surging. The rivers of stars in Junchen's acupoints were either scorched earth or destroyed in an instant. After a muffled roar, the mighty figure from the Chamber of Commerce, who seemed to be operating the rivers of stars in the universe, was instantly beaten back to his original form, unable to maintain his Dharma idol. With a sinister smile, the primal chaos Kuan swatted at Tian-tsang with its enormous hand that stretched across the sky. Like the collapse of the heavens, the giant hand landed on Tian-tsang's blood spirit altar with a loud rumble, causing the enormous altar that looked like a blue divine crystal to give off cracking sounds. The altar burst forth with thousands of blue lightning bolts and sank directly into the sea of stars below. The primal chaos Kuan let out an explosive roar. Terrifying sound waves echoed in the death crane's soul, making the white crane's eyes crack and bleed. How dare you try to stop me with just the few of you? The primal chaos Kuan licked the corner of its mouth and cackled cruelly. With a single step, it crossed hundreds of millions of miles in the starry river and arrived in front of the icy blue star in an instant. Yu Yuan! I'm here! The primal chaos Kuan roared. Yu Yuan responded instantly. He, who had been sitting quietly on the peak of the snowy mountain for a long time, suddenly straightened up. The moment he straightened up, a sword intent that seemed to be able to pierce through time and tear apart heaven and earth rushed from the top of his head into the deep, cold sea of stars. Holding the scabbard with one hand, he made a grabbing motion with the other towards the depths of the sea where the frigid depths was hidden. Crack, crack, crack. The ice on the surface of the sea that stretched for thousands of miles instantly shattered. Chapter 1357. In the vast deep sea, the solid ice that covered thousands of miles of the sea surface instantly shattered because of Yu Yuan's actions. The shattered pieces of ice flew into the sky one by one, as if they had transformed into numerous bright silver immortal swords. In the long river of sword light, corresponding sword light flew out one after another and merged with the immortal swords formed from the ice. It was as if the immortal swords suddenly had souls. In the next moment, billions of dazzling immortal swords turned into a sea of sword light and stabbed toward the Chaos Kuan. Everyone who was watching this scene suddenly felt as if they had been blinded. They couldn't see anything. The sword light was too bright and too blazing, exceeding the limit that the eyes could bear. Puff, 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 puff. The skinny Chaos Kuan was instantly pierced by billions of sword light. Countless silver holes appeared on his body, and even his red and white eyes were pierced by the sword light. The Chaos Kuan could not help but groan in pain. After the shattered ice flew out of the leaving sea and the icy star, they fell into the river of sword light below, as if endowing the river with infinite vitality. Dozens of sword-light rivers were forming a complicated sword formation under the icy star. Heaven-opening sword formation. After Du Yuan, Yu Mu, and Jining Shuang slowly adapted to the strong light, they looked up at the river of sword light from afar and felt the trajectory of the sword light. Their faces were filled with incredulity. The heaven-opening sword formation of the sword sect required hundreds of sword immortals of the sword sect to form. This wonderful sword formation was said to have been deduced by the peerless sword immortal of the sword sect and the primordial spirit of the mysterious heavenly palace. Contained the great mystery of the world. In the sword sect, it was impossible to gather so many sword immortals in such a short time. Therefore, it was extremely difficult for the heaven-opening sword formation to appear. Who would have thought that the river of sword light created by Nye Qingtian would successfully form the heaven-opening sword formation? When the ice in the deep sea fell into the river of sword light, it could turn into immortal swords. The immortal swords then integrated the sword light and sword energy that had been hidden in the depths of the river of sword light for thousands of years and magically evolved into the heaven-opening sword formation? Swoosh, swoosh. Broad rivers of sword light surrounded the Chaos Kuan like colorful ribbons and flowing light corridors. Some of the sword lights were like lightning dragons and pythons, some were like the blasphemy of a mountain range, some were like distorted space-time, some were like waterfalls, some were filled with the intent to kill, and some were filled with the taste of predetermined fate. The heaven-opening sword formation, which had taken on many forms, surrounded the Chaos Kuan. Tens of millions of sword lights flew out every moment. At the same time, after Yu Yuan stood up, her body, which was flickering between light and darkness, was filled with a mysterious aura. At this moment, his body seemed to be constantly changing between reality and illusion. Sometimes he was in the form of a spirit, sometimes he was in the form of flesh and blood, sometimes he was in the same place, and sometimes he was ethereal after countless mutations. He seemed to have finally become complete and returned to the real world. He was still in the form of flesh and blood. He gripped the scabbard tightly with one hand and grabbed at the distant sea with the other. The vast sea and the surface of the sea that was as smooth as a mirror were suddenly covered in crimson light. It looked extremely demonic and breathtakingly beautiful. "Rise!" Yu Yuan shouted in a deep voice. At the bottom of the sea, long and narrow prismatic meteors flew out. They were all crimson and looked like sharp blades. The strange group of meteors that had appeared at the edge of the illusion star zone and had been chased by Shiala and Damien for a long time suddenly charged out of the sea. "The heaven-raising sword! That divine sword is at the bottom of the sea!" The two platinum Azuras stared blankly at the sea of meteors and felt the shocking sword intent inside. They couldn't help but scream in shock. The heaven-raising sword! The surviving Azuras, the three enlightened sword immortals of the Sword sect, and the people of the Chamber of Commerce and the Shunhun sect were all stunned. Why would the heaven-raising sword, which had disappeared with the floating life realm, appear here? Whoosh! Whoosh! Tens of thousands of prismatic meteors turned into a sword that could tear the world apart and absorb the sword energy of the river of sword light. Then, the sword techniques of spirit extinguishing, soul severing, star shattering, moon shattering, sun splitting, evil punishing, demon subduing, demon frightening, and sea god slashed at the Chaos Koan from different angles and with different sword technique. The Chaos Koan, which was surrounded by the heaven-raising sword formation, was drowned in crimson sword light and was forced to endure the attacks of tens of thousands of swords. Inside, he had no choice but to transform into his original giant beast form. He transformed into a giant fish with silver scales, sharp teeth, and sharp fins. With the giant beast's sturdy body, he welcomed the concentrated attacks of the sword lights. He had a strong feeling that the heaven-toppling sword, which had disappeared for thousands of years, had been suppressed by Sabonis in the Dark Realm, and had been created by the joint efforts of the Divine Soul sect and the Chamber of Commerce, was right in front of him. It was among the tens of thousands of prismatic meteors. The real, heaven-piercing sword was here. The sword soul and the scabbard were also here. The long river of sword light was an endless stream of sword energy. It was like part of the late Nye Qintian had arrived here. The heaven-raising sword, the most powerful sword in the history of the Sword sect, slashed at him with the divine sword and the heaven-raising sword formation. Even a star behemoth like him couldn't withstand it. Thousands of fine sword slashes appeared on his enormous body, which was larger than the sun, the moon, and the stars with every moment. His silvery white scales that were even harder than divine metal also shattered piece by piece and gradually fell off. He began to wail and roar in pain. Heaven-raising sword! Junchen, who had returned to his true form after his Dharma idol was shattered, looked at the dazzling river of stars with Tian Tsang, White Crane, and Zhou Yu from the Chamber of Commerce in shock. They watched as thousands of pieces of ice and meteors turned into divine swords that swallowed the sword energy in the river of sword light and slashed at the Chaos Koan like a storm. No realm other than Howren could withstand such dense, terrifying, and fierce sword light. Even Grek's origin blood continent could be destroyed in an instant, shattering mountains and rivers and killing countless blood devils. Except for the source of the Yang Meridian and Grek at his peak, no other blood devil could survive. Not even a 9th-level demon god. Heaven-raising sword! Standing on the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan flew to the void above the river of sword light with the scabbard in his hand. He looked down at the Chaos Kurn, which was besieged by countless divine swords and dazzling sword arts. He sensed the existence of the Sword Soul. The Sword Soul had merged with the heaven-raising sword and mixed with the numerous crimson meteors. It was connected to his mind and constantly yearned for his soul will. Hundreds of fine soul strands were in the depths of the river of sword light, which he had scattered earlier to derive enlightenment from the sword intent within. At this moment, the hundreds of fine soul strands were connected to the sword soul of the heaven-raising sword. They were greedily absorbing his soul power, controlling the heaven-opening sword formation, and manipulating the numerous crimson sword lights. He was the sword formation and the soul of all the heaven-raising slashes. Only I can do it. At this moment, Yu Yuan clearly realized that he was able to control the heaven-opening sword formation because he had been a dragon slayer in his first life, because his Yin spirit practiced the great Yin soul incantation, and his heavenly spirit practiced the extreme wisdom soul-tempering art. His Yang spirit could already leave his body, and his true soul was unfathomable. Only then could he control the sword light formed by the 9 slashes to heaven and attack the Chaos Kurn from all directions. How is this possible? How is this possible? Du Yuan and Yu Mu exchanged looks. Even if Martial Uncle Gu were here, his soul wouldn't be able to withstand such chaotic sword intent and sword energy, let alone Yu Yuan. Yu Mu took a deep breath and looked at the mythical Yu Yuan standing on the dragon beheading platform. He shook his head and sighed, obviously unable to accept it. Jining Shuang had already put away her sword. Her white robes floated in the air, her beautiful eyes rippling with extraordinary splendor. However, deep in her heart she was also greatly puzzled. How is this possible? Like Yu Mu and Du Yuan, she knew how profound soul control was needed to control the heaven-opening sword formation. It didn't mean that a strong soul and boundless soul power were enough, but the subtlety of the soul had to be sublimated to an unbelievable level. A soul could be divided into 10,000 parts in an instant. Only then could they control different sword light and sword intent with wisps of soul will. Only then could they be qualified to control such a sword formation. In the history of their sword formation, it was impossible for anyone below the nascent soul stage to become the master of the heaven-opening sword formation. And Yu Yuan was far from reaching the nascent soul stage. What was even more unbelievable was that he was controlling the heaven-opening sword formation while controlling thousands of heaven-raising slashes. He was attacking the Chaos Kurn in 2 different ways. In the world, whose soul could be so exquisite that it could be divided into tens of thousands of independent thoughts in an instant. Could Yu Yuan be the leader of the alien races, the supreme great devil god Bertans, who was said to be able to create tens of thousands of little devils with a thought? How is this possible? Jun Chen, White Crane, and Zhou Yu were also shocked to the extreme. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Only Ghost King Tian Song looked calm and didn't scream. He is practicing the great Yin Soul spell, Tian Song pointed out. So what? No matter how mysterious the great Yin Soul spell is, he is still a sun god, White Crane said in a low voice. Tian Song chuckled and didn't explain further. What he was thinking was, that guy is now a sun god, but his main soul has experienced 3 lives. The flame of origin is immortal. How can he be an ordinary sun god? Once, he was able to compete with Bertans in terms of thoughts. He was an alien race who could make Bertans admit defeat. He was the best master of the heaven-opening sword formation. Even Nye Qingtian was far inferior to him. Chapter 1358. Ghost King Tian Song's expression was indifferent. He didn't seem surprised at all. Because he was the one who knew when he learned from Taisher who Yu Yuan was in his first life. He had thought about how powerful the heaven-opening sword formation would be if it fell into Yu Yuan's hands one day. because that person was the best controller of the heaven-opening sword formation. Unfortunately, before the heaven-opening sword formation was created, that person had perished in outer space. He was killed by the experts of the five supreme forces. From the very beginning, the Divine Soul sect had been created to fight against the extraterrestrial demons from the outer realms. This was because the extraterritorial heavenly demons were the true overlords of the boundless galaxy that had stood tall for tens of thousands of years. The dragons of Hauran had set foot in outer space-time and time again, but they were only small skirmishes. The dragons had never been able to shake the supremacy of the extraterrestrial demons in outer space. The reason why the Divine Soul sect was able to rise to prominence and shine so brilliantly was because they had gone from weak to strong in their battles with the heavenly devils. Gradually, they had beaten the heavenly devils to the point that they had to admit defeat and avoid them. Tian Tsang was originally the extraterrestrial demon Yu Qian. Of course, he knew about the terrifying legend of that person. The great demonic god Bertans, who was immortal and indestructible, could release tens of thousands of demonic souls with a single thought. He could attach them to the minds of all living beings in a star realm and order them to do different things at the same time. Every living being possessed by him had different thoughts, and plans for the future. The terrifying thing about Bertans was that he had tens of thousands of devil souls, which allowed him to easily control the actions of thousands of creatures. He could manipulate them as he pleased, and they wouldn't even know what he was doing. And that dragon slayer, in ancient times, had used the same method to challenge him. Their demonic souls and divine wills invaded one of the Moonlight People's worlds in an instant. Like raindrops falling on the heads of the Moonlight People, they instantly possessed all the Moonlight People in that world. Their demonic souls and divine thoughts were fighting in the minds of the millions of Moonlit clan members. They were not fighting with brute force, but with a method that directly wiped out all living beings. Tens of thousands of their thoughts were in the minds of the living beings. They were fighting and communicating with each other. At the same time, they were using different secret arts and divine abilities. In the end, Bertan's thousands of demonic souls retreated in the world of the Moonlight People. Thousands of Moonlight People had no idea what had happened, and none of them had died. Afterwards, experts from all sides went to ask around and find out the truth. According to the Moonlight People, they only knew that during that period of time, there was a constant internal struggle in their hearts. Their intelligence and subconsciousness seemed to be fighting, and they were repeatedly deliberating about something. They would never know that Bertans and Dragon Slayer's demonic soul and divine will were the cause of their intelligence and subconsciousness. As a heavenly demon with amazing talent, Tian Tsang learned of this secret and had a deep impression of the Dragon Slayer. In one breath, tens of thousands of different thoughts were performing their duties. The divine ability to control tens of thousands of people's minds was exclusive to the Dragon Slayer in the Hauran Big World. Yu Yuan had been nourishing her true soul ever since she had started practicing the Grand Een Soul incantation with her nether soul. The soul origin of his host soul was different from the others. This kind of magical control was innate and would never be erased. When the heaven-opening sword formation was first created, it even required the cooperation of a sword sect's primordial soul and Xuantianzong's primordial soul in order to work. This was because the primordial souls of the sword sect and Xuantianzong were not as good as the Shunhun sect in terms of the profoundness of the soul. As a former dragon slayer, Yu Yuan's main soul had cultivated the Great Een Soul incantation, which allowed him to unleash the power of his soul essence. Naturally, he was able to control the heaven-opening sword formation. The control of the heaven-opening sword formation did not depend on how strong the soul was or how vast the soul energy was. Instead, it depended on whether the soul could split into tens of thousands of strands and use them at will. It depended on the soul strands being able to control tens of thousands of sword lights and sword intents in an instant. Whoosh! Whoosh, whoosh. Countless sword lights carrying different sword intents flew out of the river of sword lights and madly attacked the primal Chaos Kuan. At first glance, the primal Chaos Kuan in the shape of a giant fish seemed to be trapped in a sea of dazzling sword lights. In every instant tens of thousands of sword lights flew out, each carrying different sword intents. Standing on the dragon-slaying platform, Yu Yuan, who was rapidly losing his soul energy, already knew the arrangement and operation of the heaven-opening sword formation. What he needed to do was to follow the operation of the heaven-opening sword formation and guide the different sword intents and sword lights with his many soul thoughts every second. The tens of thousands of sword lights had tens of thousands of different trajectories and directions. As long as he could guide the tens of thousands of sword lights with his many soul thoughts and draw out tens of thousands of trajectories, the sword lights would move according to his soul thoughts and arrange the dazzling heaven-opening sword formation that contained the laws of the heavens. He gradually realized that it seemed to be effortless for him to do such a thing. It was as if he was skilled in this way. Crack! A silver-white fish bone protruded from a gaping wound on the Chaos Kuan's abdomen. Just as it was about to evolve into some kind of bloodline divine ability, 7 sword lights with different profound meanings weaved into a brand new sword formation. Like a ball of sword light ice, it fell and shattered the fish bone in the wound. The primal Chaos Kuan's bloodshot eyes had just activated the flames of the sun and were about to explode with the power of suns. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dozens of sword lights that contained star frost sword energy turned into many pieces of ice, and dissipated scorching clear water sword intents flew directly into its crimson eyes. The blood divine ability that was brewing in its eyes was destroyed before it could take shape. Inside its open mouth that was lined with rows of sharp thorns, balls of blood power slowly gathered and transmitted power that could destroy a small world. However, the balls of blood power were attacked by many blazing sword lights. Boom! Boom! The primal Chaos Kuan's mouth exploded one after another. The blood power that he had lost control of exploded his mouth into a bloody mess, causing him to howl in pain. The heaven-opening sword formation gathered hundreds of exquisite sword arts and sword intents of the sword sect, including the laws of wind, frost, fire, ice, time, space, destruction, the change of spring and summer, the rise and fall of the sun and the moon. The laws of the sword that the great sword immortals of the sword sect had painstakingly comprehended were all merged into it. It was as if hundreds of great sword immortals had surrounded the primal Chaos Kuan and displayed the laws of the great Tao that had once appeared in Howren in the form of sword lights. Any abnormality that appeared on the primal Chaos Kuan's enormous body would be suppressed and destroyed by sword lights in a breath's time. It also caused his struggles and his subsequent actions to die one by one in his womb. In the primal Chaos Kuan's senses, he wasn't facing the heaven-opening sword formation of the sword sect, but the laws of the great Tao that the great sword immortals of the sword sect had comprehended in Howren for thousands of years. It was as if he was facing the mysterious laws of Howren and the numerous great sword immortals of the sword sect with his own strength. Among them, Nie Qingtian's crimson sword lights, which contained the invincible sword power of the 9 slashes to the sky, focused on destruction and killing. They left the deepest wounds on the primal Chaos Kuan's enormous body. The heaven-opening sword formation restricted his movements, preventing him from escaping and displaying his full strength. The 9 slashes to the sky took the opportunity to attack him madly, causing him to be constantly injured. His flesh ruptured, his organs shattered, and his soul was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. Gradually, his crimson and silver-white eyes became turbid as they were drowned by his own blood energy. He was almost unable to see the boundless sword light that filled the sky. The dragon beheading platform and Yu Yuan, who was on it, had long since disappeared from his sight. Why is the heaven-opening sword at the mouth of the frigid abyss? Why is it hidden in that deep sea? The Shunhun sect and the Tongtian Trading Company worked together to scheme against Sabonis and Grek in the Thousand Birds realm. It was also to allow the heaven-opening sword to freely break open the dark realm. It just had to be here, where the rivers of sword lights are, so that the divine sword can repeatedly attack. The primal chaos Kuan wailed in pain while thinking hard. He was wondering if he had also been schemed against by the Shunhun sect and the Tongtian Trading Company on his secret trip to the Firefly domain. Did they know that he would come, that he was going to possess Yu Yuan, and that he was going to use Yu Yuan to start another form of rebirth? So they specially arranged for the heaven-opening sword to come over? Could it be that Yu Yuan, that divine sword, and the river of sword lights had been waiting for him? The more the primal chaos Kuan thought about it, the more uneasy and terrified he became. He always felt that he had been tricked by the Shunhun sect and the Tongtian Trading Company. He always felt that the divine king of the Shunhun sect had arrived at the Firefly domain. Perhaps he was hiding in the dark at this moment, watching him make a fool of himself. However, he would never have thought that Yu Yuan, who was controlling the heaven-opening sword formation and using the 9 slashes to the sky, was one of the divine kings of the Shunhun sect. It was the dragon slayer who had founded the Shunhun sect, made the Shunhun sect stand at the top of the universe, and made all the alien races tremble in fear. Chapter 1359. The collapse of the small worlds in the Firefly star zone stopped because of Yu Yuan. In the dark and cold sea of stars, the frigid snow bear scratched its head in confusion. Its bright eyes stared at the river of sword lights and the chaos Kuan that could not break free no matter how hard it tried. It seemed to be at a loss. Then, it felt great joy and relief. It had been prepared to fight the chaos Kuan to the death. It had planned to stop the Chaos Kuan from possessing Yu Yuan's body at all costs, even if the Firefly Star Zone no longer existed. It had wanted to buy Yu Yuan as much time as possible until the people of the Chamber of Commerce and the Shunhun sect arrived. It was willing to die for that. What it wanted was for the drop of blood that originated from it to be able to give birth to a new life in the moon. It thought that Yu Yuan, who was in charge of the dragon-slaying platform, might be able to trace the origin of its bloodline and revive it one day in the future with the new life it had given birth to. It knew who Yu Yuan was. What it didn't expect was that before his 3 souls were awakened and his nascent spirit was refined, Yu Yuan was still able to restrain the Chaos Kuan with the power of the river of sword auras and prevent it from doing whatever it wanted. It roared in a low voice, because it sensed that the real towering sword was besieging the Chaos Kuan in the crimson meteors that troubled the Chaos Kuan the most. Even it didn't know when the godly sword had arrived at the bottom of the sea. Right at the mouth of the frigid abyss? The frigid snow bear was confused and confused. There were too many questions in its heart. It was the real ruler of the Firefly star zone. The icy stars that were hidden at the mouth of the frigid abyss could be regarded as part of it. Under such circumstances, the towering sword had mysteriously arrived and was still hiding at the mouth of the frigid abyss. It didn't even know. Roar. It suddenly roared at the river of stars where the 36 totem poles were. The totem poles that were millions of feet tall and hundreds of acres wide were shining with gold, black, or blue colors. Every totem pole was engraved with complicated and strange demonic characters. Those characters were like ancient demons that had appeared in their primitive forms thousands of years ago. At this moment, 36 huge totem pillars were ignited by the blood energy of the Chaos Kuan. The ancient demon characters that had been awakened suddenly became dim one after another. The demonic characters also rapidly turned from clear to indistinct. The ancient demons that seemed ready to rush out and bite Alonso at any moment seemed to be grabbed by the neck by some kind of force and dragged into the pillar. Alonso, who was holding his silver spear, holding the strange crystal ball, and even summoning the unrepaired Sugarland cage, let out a long sigh of relief. He was still standing in the center of the heavenly capital ancient demon formation, still surrounded by the numerous totem poles that towered into the starry sky. However, the terrifying world that caused space to collapse and all living beings to perish, like a chaotic purgatory, instantly shattered into pieces, and the demonic energy that made him tremble no longer flooded over. What happened? Alonso lifted his spear and slowly rose into the air. He realized that none of the giant totem pillars were attacking him anymore. It was as if all the power that the Chaos Koan had injected into it had been sucked out. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! At this moment, the 36 totem poles were still flying in the air, towards where the river of sword light should have been. Looking in that direction, Alonso was deeply shocked by the miraculous scene. He saw the Chaos Koan in the shape of a giant fish, the sea of sword light that enveloped the Chaos Koan like a sea of stars, and the thousands of sword lights that shot towards the Chaos Koan every moment. Those sword lights were so dazzling and sharp that even though he was so far away, he felt a stinging pain on his skin. He also saw many prismatic crimson meteors slashing at the Chaos Koan with the legendary 9 slashes to the sky, bringing out large chunks of flesh and silver scales. This ferocious star behemoth was spilling blood in the air, just like the violent bear that had just died. The drops of blood were as large as millstones and more than 10,000 kilograms heavy, filled with immense blood energy. The Chaos Koan's eyes, which were condensed from the sun and moon, were filled with blood. At first glance, his eyes seemed to be soaked in 2 huge blood lakes. Above the miserable Chaos Koan, the dragon beheading platform floated steadily in the air, motionless. Yu Yuan stood as straight as a sword, holding the scabbard in one hand. He lowered his head and looked coldly at the Chaos Koan, which was being attacked by thousands of swords. The way he looked at the Chaos Koan was like the legendary invincible god king looking at his defeated opponent. Alonso couldn't help but close his eyes. Then, he gently shook his head and looked up again. It was still the same scene. Alonso was shocked. His mouth was wide open, and his body was stiff for a long time without any movement. His soul and body seemed to be temporarily disconnected at this time. His soul seemed to have left his body and didn't continue to control it, so it couldn't vibrate with his soul. It wasn't until he heard the howl of the violent bear that he suddenly woke up. The feeling of his soul and body merging slowly returned to him. He closed his eyes again, closed them for a while, and then opened them again to look at the Chaos Koan. After a long while, the Azura race commander took a deep breath and murmured, "How is this possible?" This "how is this possible" was exactly the same as the 3 great sword immortals, Junshun, the Death Crane, and Zhou. "Commander!" Shirala, Damien, and the 2 surviving Platinum Azuras rushed over and scattered around Alonso. Shirala, especially, seemed to have just had a nightmare. She dreamed that she had become the puppet of the Chaos Koan. She actually ignored Sabonis's question and refused again and again. She woke up the moment the Chaos Koan was surrounded by the heaven-opening sword formation. "My king, tell me to find you immediately." As Shirala spoke, the dark domain cold well that she had refined suddenly left her body and landed at Alonso's feet. The moment he stepped on the dark domain cold well, Alonso and the Shura of Gojosian Sabonis's souls seamlessly connected. Even the blood energy that came from the Shura of Gojosian Sabonis gushed out of the well and poured into Alonso's body, causing Alonso's slender and tall body to swell. The broken natural spikes on his shoulders, knees, and elbows grew out and protruded again. Moreover, they were even sharper and colder. Damien, Shirala, and the other 2 Platinum Azuras were excited. They immediately knew that the Shura of Gojosian Sabonis realized that the Firefly domain had undergone an earth-shaking change. Although he couldn't come temporarily, he poured a lot of power into Alonso's body. As a result, not only did Alonso quickly recover his combat strength, but he also became stronger than before. Fizz. The golden lightning and silver threads inside the fizz. 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 Alonso's expression changed unpredictably. While communicating with Sabonis in secret, he glanced at the violent bear and the chaos koan that was surrounded by the heaven-opening sword formation. Behemoth blood. Above the dragon-slaying platform, Yu Yuan's expression changed slightly as he watched the drops of blood that were as large as millstones fly out of the chaos koan's body. Boom! The dragon-slaying platform teleported and appeared below the chaos koan that was surrounded by the heaven-opening sword formation. The miraculous dragon-slaying platform, which was made of heaven-splitting divine stone, suddenly expanded thousands of times. Right below the behemoth, the dragon-slaying platform caught the drops of blood that contained life energy like an upside-down umbrella. Every drop of the Chaos Koan's blood that fell into the dragon-slaying platform was like a lake of life in two different worlds. The miraculous dragon-slaying platform took in all of the Chaos Koan's blood. The heart of the baby Titanspinosaurus inside the purple-gold dragon egg seemed to speed up a lot as it felt the blood of its kind falling. Standing on the dragon-slaying platform, Yu Yuan could see the drops of Chaos Koan's blood falling into the ground inside the dragon-slaying platform, like water melting into the sea, instantly becoming a part of the dragon-slaying platform. However, the incomparably pure life energy in the depths of the ground merged with the purple-gold dragon egg. Because of this, the dragon egg shone with luxurious purple and golden light. Chapter 1360. First, it was the beast blood. Then, it was the silver-like fish scales. Finally, it was the large chunks of flesh. At the center of the heaven-opening sword formation, the primal Chaos Koan, which was in the shape of a giant fish, was cut by billions of sword lights. Blood, scales, and chunks of flesh were separated from its body. Like an unknown black hole, the dragon-beheading platform devoured the parts that had been separated from its body. The primal Chaos Koan, which was in its primitive form, was covered in bone-deep wounds. Many of the vital parts that had been pierced by the sword lights were bloody, which made it look even more terrifying. However, his life force was still extremely strong, and his open wounds were actually healing at a rapid pace. It was just that its recovery speed couldn't keep up with the sword lights that came after it. However, the river of sword lights that formed the heaven-opening sword formation was actually shrinking during this process. The abundant sword energy in the river was also rapidly draining away. The river of sword lights had been providing sword energy for the heaven-opening sword formation and the 9 slashes that propped up heaven. However, it wasn't endless. After Nie Qingtian's death, the sea of sword lights, which had been accumulated by the river of sword lights for thousands of years, would eventually be exhausted and dry up. If it continued to squander it like it was now. I can't believe a real star behemoth is so terrifying. With such a sword formation attacking him for a long time, he's still far from death. Yu Yuan was shocked. He slowly realized that the primal Chaos Koan's core power was life power. The life power could make the primal Chaos Koan's recovery ability unparalleled in the world. If he couldn't kill it. With this thought, he secretly observed the current situation with the help of the dragon-beheading platform's vast field of vision. At first glance, he saw Alonso standing on the dark domain frigid well that originally belonged to Shirala, staring at him and the trapped primal Chaos Koan with a cold look in his eyes. Right now, other than the primal Chaos Koan, Alonso was the strongest expert in the Firefly domain. In Yu Yuan's perception, Alonso, who was standing on the dark domain frigid well, had become even more dangerous. Even the Empyrean cage had been repaired and was shining with divine light again. The power of the dark domain. The superpower gushing out of the well was dark and cold. It clearly came from the mysterious dark domain. There was also a strange blood energy hidden in it. Yu Yuan immediately guessed that although the severely wounded Shura of Gojoseon hadn't come to the Firefly domain, Sabonis was using his power and influence to help Alonso with the help of the dark domain cold well. He looked around and saw Junchen, the Death Crane, Zhou Yu, and Tian Tsang blocking the totem poles. The demon totem pole was stuck in the outer heaven sea, which was a replica of the starry ash sea, and was flying towards him. Those four clearly knew that once the heavenly capital ancient demon formation was given, they would rush into the heaven-opening sword formation and be controlled by the Chaos Kuan. They might be able to take the opportunity to break the formation. That was why they worked together to stop it. In the distance, the frigid snow bear roared in a low voice and flew towards him with a face full of excitement. The three sword immortals of the sword sect stood in the air, holding their swords. They stared unblinkingly at the heaven-opening sword formation and the crimson sword aura that left long, narrow, and deep wounds on the Chaos Kuan's body. They watched as the Chaos Kuan was constantly injured. The three sword immortals seemed to have lost their minds and were focused on comprehending the sword incantations. They were deeply shocked and fascinated by the heaven-opening sword formation formed by the rivers of sword aura. They were doing their best to comprehend the power of the sword intent it contained. They were also trying to perceive the subtleties of the 9 slashes that raised the heavens, hoping to take the opportunity to inspire their own swordsmanship. Whoosh! Whoosh! The outer heaven sea, which was a replica of the starry ash sea, carried the demon totem pole and flew towards the Chaos Kuan. Along the way, the power of the deep sea kept gathering from the stars. Blue superpowers flew out from the stars and merged into the dreamlike sea. As the white-robed man riding the crane, Jun Chen looked at the sea with a grim expression. The deep sea breathes infinite life. If this Chaos Kuan, which is in the form of a giant fish, can channel the power of the deep sea into the sword formation, it will be a bit troublesome. Giant fish. Once it enters the sea, its strength should increase by another level. Yu Yuan was deep in thought. He was multitasking as he carefully observed the Chaos Kuan, which was trapped in the heaven-opening sword formation. After a while, he gradually came to some understanding and thought of many things that he had neglected before. When the Chaos Kuan had been attacked, it had instinctively assumed its primitive form, which was a giant fish larger than the sun and the moon. In its primitive form, its physical defense seemed to be the strongest. It had also been proven that even the terrifying heaven-opening sword formation and the 9 slashes that raised the heavens had failed to kill it or break it apart. This was enough to prove the strength of a giant beast's body. In its primitive form, the Chaos Kuan was extremely large. Its physical defense was invincible, and its physical strength was shocking. It could use the sun and moon it had refined, and it could use its eyes and bloodline abilities. However, in this form, it lacked flexibility and appeared to be rather bloated. If its opponent was a human nascent soul expert of the same level, a rank 10 bloodline warrior from the outer realms. If it was alone, its boundless blood power might be able to exhaust its opponent to death. For example, right now, the heaven-opening sword formation and the 9 slashes that raised the heavens were like part of Nie Qingtian's continuous attack. Even someone as strong as Nie Qingtian might not be able to kill it after exhausting all of its sword energy, soul power, and power. It was possible that Nie Qingtian would run out of power first, and it would only be severely injured. Then, it would be able to break the heaven-opening sword formation and kill Nie Qingtian. If Nie Qingtian was an ordinary human nascent soul expert and a rank 10 warrior from the outer realms, the result might be the same. But what if the Chaos Kuan was attacked by multiple human nascent soul experts and rank 10 warriors from the outer realms? Would the Chaos Kuan be able to break free in the face of so many powerful experts who were as agile as lightning, releasing thousands of sword energy, mysterious divine abilities, and divine artifacts and holy artifacts? Because its body was too large, if it blindly resisted, the final result would still be death. It might not even be able to escape. Thinking of this, Yu Yuan seemed to see the star behemoths that had run amok in the universe in the past dying one after another under the siege of so many rank 10 warriors from the outer realms. The immortal bird was besieged all the way and finally died in the domain of annihilation. Therefore, she chose to open her path of rebirth in Howren, in a new form, in a human form. The Chaos Kuan deliberately asked him to build the life altar, so that he could refine his yang spirit and possess him. It seemed that it was also looking for this path. Not only was it powerful, but it also had boundless blood power and was agile, and could change its form at will. Only in this way could it nimbly avoid being besieged by so many powerful experts, and not bear the attacks of so many divine artifacts and holy artifacts because of its size. In a trance, Yu Yuan seemed to see the scene of human hunters besieging wild beasts with iron cages, spears, and torches in the ancient mountains of Howren, and slowly exhausting the fierce beasts to death with their advantage in numbers. How similar was it to the scene of star behemoths being besieged by peak experts of various races and slowly dying? You wish. He snorted and looked at the Chaos Kuan. Then, he sent a wisp of his soul consciousness into his own small world of qi and blood. He saw that his yang spirit, whose body was transparent and had countless bloodline crystal chains intertwined inside, was breathing evenly. His yang spirit was full of desire for the behemoth's flesh and blood. In addition to his yang spirit, the blood prison of the Gendo, which he had temporarily placed in his acupoints, was also eager to rush out and take a bite of the flesh and blood that had flown out of the Chaos Kuan's body. The behemoth's flesh and blood were like supreme delicacies that contained the wonders of heaven and earth. Don't use up your sword power. Suddenly, Mo Baichuan's voice echoed out beside him. Even if you use up your sword power, you won't be able to kill the Chaos Kuan. Alonso, thanks to the Shura of Gojoseon, has recovered from his injuries, and is madly accumulating blood power. Once you drain the river of sword power, you and that brutal bear won't be much of a threat to the Azuras. Over the years, the reason why Sabonis and the Azuras have respected Brutal Bear so much is that it can protect the entrance of the frigid depths and deliver cold crystals to the Azuras, and that it can use the sword power left by Nie Qingtian. Azuras only believe in the strong, and only revere the people and beasts that can truly threaten them. Mo Baichuan quietly reminded him in the dark, while everyone was paying attention to something else. Yu Yuan's body shook slightly, and he immediately understood and nodded gently. He looked around and activated the dragon beheading platform. Only then did he see Mo Baichuan's shadow, which was hidden under Jining Shuang's feet. Chapter 1361. Jining Shuang and the other two were fighting the 4 platinum Azuras in the icy world. In the depths of the earth where the laws had collapsed, in the heart of the dried-up volcano, there was a dark red shadow surrounded by 9 flames that formed the shape of the 9 lights' heavenly wheel. Mo Baichuan was among them. He was from the camp of the 5 supreme forces of Howren. Of course, he should be close to the 3 sword immortals of the sword sect. He was hiding in there to ambush Damien, Shirala, and the other platinum Azuras so that Du Yuan wouldn't die. Because Du Yuan was the most seriously injured, he was the most likely to die under the siege of the Azuras. The primal Chaos Kuan once came to me and wanted to work with us to deal with the forces of the Firefly Star Zone. He doesn't care about the Azuras, the Chamber of Commerce, or the Shunhun sect. He only wants you. Mo Baichuan's indifferent voice came quietly. Yu Yuan's face didn't change, but he gradually had a plan in his mind. The primal Chaos Kuan had never taken sides. When he was in the Annihilation Star Zone, he first cooperated with the Tongtian Trading Company so that Lin Zhuyun could borrow the Cold Abyss entrance from the bottom of the 9 depths of Cold Abyss to rush into the Annihilation Star Zone and let the Chamber of Commerce send Lin Zhuyun to him. Behind his back, he also colluded with Sabonis and the great demon god Grek. In the early years, he was suppressed in the starry ash sea by the demonic phoenix. Now, he wanted to reach a secret agreement with the 5 supreme forces through Mo Baichuan to help Howren open the Cold Abyss entrance in exchange for possessing him. Slightly raising his head, looking at the primal Chaos Kuan whose wounds were still increasing, Yu Yuan's eyes were cold. He realized that this cruel giant beast would only think of himself. In the eyes of the primal Chaos Kuan, humans, demons, and all intelligent beings in the outer space could be sacrificed at any time. Alonso's attention is on the dragon beheading platform under your feet. This is strange. What he secretly looks at the most is not the primal Chaos Kuan, you, or the sky-piercing sword. Mo Baichuan reminded him again. Dragon beheading platform? Yu Yuan retracted his gaze from the primal Chaos Kuan and looked at the white divine stone at his feet. Unlike the others only saw the turbid white light. They could not see the true scene inside the dragon subduing platform or the many dragon corpses. He saw the purple-gold dragon egg at a glance. The baby of the Titanspinosaurus. With a tremble in his heart, Yu Yuan immediately understood something. He knew that the great commander of the Shura clan was communicating with the Shura of Gojosian Sabonis through the dark domain Cold Well. Why was Sabonis doing his best to help Alonso recover and infuse him with his own blood energy? Alonso had once showered the small heaven and earth inside the dragon-slaying platform with numerous bolts of golden lightning and silver light, and caught a glimpse of the violet-golden dragon egg. At that moment, Alonso's expression was not quite right. His gaze was complicated and strange. Alonso had not lived long enough. He might not have been able to see what was inside the violet-golden dragon egg. However, the Shura of Gojosian Sabonis was so old that he needed to hide in the dark domain to prolong his life. Perhaps he had already realized that the baby of the Titanspinosaurus was slowly growing inside the violet-golden dragon egg. The Titanspinosaurus was the true king of the behemoths that had run rampant in the starry sky and frightened all creatures. If the Titanspinosaurus had not been besieged and killed by the other behemoths, perhaps the new era would not have begun, and the heavenly demons, Shuras, the star race, the light race, and the dark spirit race would not have gradually emerged and dominated the boundless starry sky. The Titanspinosaurus would not have fallen in Howren, the ancient demon race would not have been born, the dragon race would not have flourished, and the human race would not have reached the top. This king of the behemoths was a true anomaly in the world. It was truly a great mystery. At this moment, the Chaos Kuan that was surrounded by the heaven-opening sword formation and attacked by the 9 slashes of the mighty heaven was obviously not on the same level as the former king of the behemoth. Alonso and that Sabonis aren't planning to steal that baby, are they? Yu Yuan inhaled a mouthful of cold starry sky superpower. While he was thinking in secret, he found that the frigid snow bear, who had been helping him, had rushed over with a silly smile. It floated side by side with the dragon beheading platform. Because of its arrival, the cold mist that originally surrounded the river of sword lights surged toward the world with the mouth of the frigid abyss, repairing the realm barrier that had been torn by the Chaos Kuan. Within a short period of time, the glowing, icy realm barrier enveloped the cold star again. Alonso and the Shura of Gojosian Sabonis might attack us. After a moment of hesitation, Yu Yuan stood on the dragon beheading platform and said to it. Its mountain-like body was obviously a bit stiff, as if it didn't believe the truth of Yu Yuan's words. Therefore, it looked at Alonso, who was on the other side of the platform, with a pleading look in its eyes. Alonso had been staring at the dragon beheading platform the whole time. Naturally, he saw its arrival and its gaze. At this moment, Alonso, who was handsome and had a feminine temperament, was quite majestic. His bulging muscles were full of unsettling explosive power. It was as if he had become a different person. He smiled and bowed to the violent bear, his attitude still humble. The violent bear's huge eyes were filled with confusion and confusion. It couldn't pick out anything wrong with Alonso's expression and behavior, which made it somewhat suspicious. It thought that because Yu Yuan had controlled the heaven-opening sword formation to help the Shura race trap the Chaos Kuan, many realms in the field of Firefly wouldn't explode, Alonso wouldn't do anything rash. Not to mention that it was right next to Yu Yuan. If Alonso and Sabonis were to communicate, the king of the Shura race would be more considerate of their old friendship, wouldn't it? As intelligent as it was, it couldn't find a reason why Alonso and the Shura of Gojoseon had to deal with it and Yu Yuan. Therefore, it didn't believe Yu Yuan's words. Sigh. Yu Yuan sighed softly in his heart. Alonso saw a baby Titanspinosaurus growing in the violet-gold dragon egg, but it didn't see it. Therefore, it couldn't imagine what the Shura of Gojoseon, Sabonis, and Alonso would do for the baby of a king of the behemoths. Here. Pointing at the dragon beheading platform, Yu Yuan said with a serious expression, "There's something that Sabonis and Alonso desperately desire in here. That thing is more valuable than the entire field of Firefly and the Chaos Kuan's life. Also, it's worth far more than the entrance to the frigid abyss. For the thing inside, the Shura of Gojoseon might be willing to bet everything he has. Do you understand?" Woo, woo. Tyrannical Bear let out a few low cries and slowly lowered its head to look at the dragon beheading platform. Unfortunately, it couldn't see anything. In its memories, there were traces of Yu Yuan's first life, as well as the dragon beheading platform. It only knew that there were dragon corpses in there. What it thought was, could those dragon corpses be what the Shura race was greedy for? Wasn't the Chaos Kuan more valuable than the dead dragon god? "It's not what you think," Yu Yuan exclaimed softly. Whoosh! A strange stone suddenly flew out of the deep blue sea that was modeled after the Stardust Sea. The strange stone wasn't big. It was like a small star, shining brightly on its own. The Een Corpse King's face appeared in the strange stone. He looked bitterly at Yu Yuan, who was standing on the dragon beheading platform, and then looked up at his master, who was trapped by the heaven-opening sword formation and being attacked by tens of thousands of swords. "Why do you have to make both sides suffer? You can't kill my master. You can only injure him." The Een Corpse King had come to ask for peace. There was no sign of Lin Zhuyun in the depths of the strange stone. She must be hiding in the dark to avoid being seen by Yu Yuan, which would have the opposite effect. "Is it your idea or his?" Yu Yuan sneered and looked up at the giant beast that was still spilling blood. "What? Does he know pain and fear now? Han Yuan might come. He doesn't want to face the Xian Wang Dao flag again after being injured," the Een Corpse King said with a sigh. "He doesn't want to be suppressed in the Hauran Great Realm again. Han Yuan. The Xian Wang Dao flag." Yu Yuan's body shook slightly. The violent bear also growled. "The Firefly Star Zone is next to the Silver Sand Star Zone. Such a huge commotion here will alarm him." The Een Corpse King nodded. "The main thing is that my master has been trapped in the heaven-opening sword formation for too long. Also, Han Yuan contributed a lot to the creation and formation of the sword formation. As long as he's still in the Silver Sand Star Zone, he'll sense it sooner or later and sense that something is wrong. With that, the Een Corpse King looked at Junchen, Zhou Yu, the Death Crane, and Tian Song. If that Xian Wang Dao flag comes, none of us will have an easy time. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.